of time.
O'clock.
Well, hey, everybody. It's Wednesday night.
Yep.
Time for the main show.
It's the main show about Anthrax. The Anthrax scare.
And demonetized. No, just kidding. Probably not.
I remember when it happened.
I do as well.
And then the whole fucking saga of who did it that went on for seemingly years and years. And by that time, I didn't give a fuck.
Well, it did. Well, see, that's the thing, because I remember very vividly, like, when this first happened, because when it happened, because I was older, I was in my 20s, and I was working. I was at my job, because I remember when it happened. And, so I kind of remember it happening, but then, because the investigation went on so long, they didn't really figure out who they thought it was. It's technically still unsolved, but they think they know who it was, but I don't know. We'll get into that. But by the time that happened, it was like 7 years later. Yeah. So I think a lot of, they did report it in the media and shit like that. But it's just like, by that point, I didn't really know. Because when I started researching this, I was like, oh, I vividly remembered like when it first happened. But I was like, what the fuck happened with that? I don't even remember what the fuck happened with that. It's like, I'm sure I heard about it, but it's like it didn't stick for whatever reason. But yeah, so I had to go back into it. There's actually a decent documentary on Netflix about this. It's not a series, it's just a standalone, and it's like an hour and a half. It's not fantastic. It does like lag a little bit, like, because Tom was watching it going, there's kind of a lot of filler in this, which there slightly was, but there's a couple other YouTube shows that were good about it too, that kind of went more into the dude who they think it was, like, went into his background and stuff, which I actually thought was kind of interesting. The documentary that they have on Netflix, they actually have an actor. Who the fuck is that actor? He was on that show. I know that really narrows it down. Does that, that actor from that show? The dude with the head. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Dude, they had those shoes.
It was that guy. I can't remember what his name is, but it's like he was on, I'll think of it in a minute, but like he was on some kind of big show that I used to watch. And he plays Dr. Bruce Ivins, the guy that they think it was, because obviously that guy's dead. So they did like reenactments, and they had him like reading some of the dude's real emails and stuff like that. Dude was I'm gonna say I'm not privy to all the information that the FBI was privy to, so I don't know, and they don't really know if this dude really did it or not. And like I said, he's dead now, so they can't really. They were just kind of like, yeah, it was probably him, but that's about all we can do. And I'm going to say I probably fall into that. I don't know. It does seem like he had the opportunity for sure. There was a lot of circumstantial evidence against him, but it's just slightly possible that it could have been somebody else. Although the shit did stop, as far as we know. The thing about this kind of bioterrorism attack, which is kind of the first one that had happened, this is like the first one like this that had happened on American soil, like ever, right? As far as I remember.
Yes. Well, no. There were corporations back in the 1800s handed out smallpox.
Well, yeah, that too.
There's biotech.
And I get, you could consider that bioterrorism.
There's all kinds of stuff that was happening.
But I think this was the first thing of this nature that had happened in this particular way. But the thing about it is that because it's sent through the mail, and because anthrax is a naturally occurring bacteria, like you can get it just from dirt or contaminated meat or something like that, doesn't necessarily mean.
I thought it was a spore.
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's a bacterium though.
All right.
That's just spores is just kind of the way that you
pick it up. That's the vector.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So so you can get it naturally. It's rare, but it does happen. So when somebody came up with it, because it's so rare, they didn't really think of it, oh, somebody's got anthrax, you know what I mean? And then when they found out it was anthrax, because it was just one person, they didn't really jump to the conclusion, oh, they got it through the mail or it was terrorism or anything like that. They just thought he got it some natural way, because that's usually what would happen. And I think the people that died from this, because five people did end up dying. None of the people that the anthrax was actually mailed to, because other people ended up opening it, or the people that worked in the post office where it went through, like, end up dying and shit like that, which is shitty. But, you know, I'm not saying it would have been better if the people that were the intended targets got killed. That also would have been awful. But I'm just saying that it was like collateral damage. And I believe 22 other people were infected but survived. Because the thing about this particular strain of anthrax, which we will get into, is that it was a particularly strong variant. And also the way that it was, the way that it was administered, it was from inhaling. And that particular kind of anthrax, because there's a couple different kinds, is, I believe, between 80 and 90% fatal. So it's bad news if you get it, that's for sure. And even if you survive it, it does cause some like lingering effects and things like that. So it's not a fun time all around. But yeah, so this was kind of interesting to delve back into. I think it was one of you guys' idea, because I thought we had done a show about this, but then I remembered that the show I was thinking of was the Chicago Tylenol poisonings that happened in the 80s. We did do a show about that. I've always had kind of a fascination about these kind of like mass poisonings like this. Because when this first happened, obviously, because it happened like, the first letter was sent out like a week after 9/11. So everybody thought it was related, right? That it was just like, this is Islamic terrorists and blah, blah, blah. But, it turned out not to be that, probably. So the motives behind, if the guy that they think did it was actually the dude that did it, his motives were like weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe. They're not sure entirely what his motives are, but he was a weird dude. He was a weird dude.
If it was Islamic radicals, they'd have a bigger supply of this, and you use a lot more of it.
Yeah,
I don't think they could get a hold of it anyway.
Yeah, I think really, I remember vaguely when this happened. And obviously, when they first realized that this was a bioterrorism attack, like of going through the mail, obviously the first thing they would think was that it was related to 9/11. And as we'll get into, whoever was doing it was very keen to make people think that because of like the letters that were in there.
Yeah.
But when they found out that it was actually just like an American dude who didn't seem to have any political agenda, he was just maybe crazy, and angry about something or other. I'm not entirely sure what.
But it may or may not be this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think it probably is, just because, like I said, all the evidence is circumstantial, but it's a lot of circumstantial evidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even though they don't have like, sorry, I have like a piece of hair that's like right in my eyeball and I can't get it. But, even though they don't have like a super smoking gun thing, but all of the evidence that they have does kind of make him look pretty guilty. But it is possible that he's not. But like I said, he's dead, so I guess we'll never know. Unless they catch another person and they figure out that person did it, which I guess is still possible. So,
it's odd that it was anthrax, though. That's a very retro, old-fashioned bioweapon.
It is.
And it's not very good. It defeats a lot of the reasons why you would want to use a bioweapon. If you use anthrax, you know it's a weapon. Because it doesn't occur naturally in large amounts, And the whole reason why you'd ever want to use a bioweapon was to deny that you used it.
Right.
So you're like, yeah, your enemies, they're all dying from some kind of plague. We had nothing to do with it. That's not that. That was natural. That's a natural plague that's hitting them. That's what saves you from retaliation.
Yeah, because you're just like, who, me? I didn't do that shit.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, don't you dare.
Nature did that shit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's very clandestine and stealth. Well, thousands and thousands of people start coming down with anthrax. A weapon was used.
Yeah. So. And this one, like I said, it wasn't a lot of people, and it was very small scale. Anthrax does occur in nature, as I mentioned, but it's very, very rare for somebody to come down with it. So much so that when somebody turned up with the symptoms, they didn't initially know that it was that because they hadn't seen it before. And honestly, when this happened in 2001, the last person to die from anthrax in the United States, as far as I know, like from my research, was in 1976, and that was like natural. So, even doctors that were on the, they wouldn't have jumped to that conclusion because they just had never seen it. You know what I mean?
There's probably untold other shit out there lurking that we don't know about too.
Oh, I'm sure. And it's probably better not to think about it too hard. Because like I said, do you remember for a time we were kind of obsessed with that show? What was it called? The Monsters Inside Me? Monsters Inside Me.
Yeah.
Which was all about, it wasn't just diseases. Sometimes it was shit like
pieces of metal.
like a piece of the grill brush that somebody swallowed in a hamburger and it like fucked their shit all up. Oh my God. I was horrified. I was like, I'm never eating anything ever.
Yeah.
Like off the grill anyway. I'm like, let's get some. Yeah, because it was just like one little brush and it just didn't it poke a hole in his intestines or
and it blocked a part of his intestines.
Yeah.
He was puking up
shit.
Fecal mountain.
Yeah.
And shit. It was.
And I was just kind of that horrified the shit out of me, and they couldn't figure out what it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He had an obstruction in his
Jesus
bowels.
Christ. Just from one tiny
One
little
hair like
a
metal
hair like a metal hair from a grill brush.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Wasn't he was at a barbecue at somebody's house, like his friend's house or some
Yeah.
shit like that. And I was just kind of like,
It was
oh
on
my
a
God.
steak and he ate it.
Yeah, like a steak or a burger or something. But it's just kind of like, yeah. But some of the ones, the diseases too, like people just like, hey, I was just like walking through the woods or I was just swimming in a lake one day or something like that. And then they come down with these totally bizarre fucking symptoms.
Yeah.
And because it's so unusual, like the doctors are just like,
Yeah.
never seen this shit before. This is crazy.
Guy worked with one of his little boys. He worked with him in Louisiana. One of his little boys died of something from a cut on his foot. And he was playing in the mud.
Yep.
And it got him and
it happens.
Got infected and he started getting real sick and they took him to the hospital and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. And then by the time blood work came back, they said he was just eaten up with some kind of a bacteria.
Yeah.
That was in muddy groundwater. He was digging in a hole and cut his.
There were a couple cases on that show like that.
He did everything they could, and he was only, the boy was like 6.
Yeah.
They did everything they could.
Because a lot of times, like I said, because the shit's so unusual, they don't think of it. You know what I mean? It's not really their fault.
They're
They're
just
just
figure out what's going on.
Right. They're just human, and it's like,
He had a little cut on his ankle. It was infected.
They just go from most likely to least likely. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's too late, which is kind of a shame. But,
I think they said it might have been some kind of an amoeba or something.
Yeah.
Amoebas got in there.
Like I said, I remember that kind of shit happening. Yeah.
I don't remember exactly. It was some microbiology did it.
Yeah.
It was something unusual. I think it might have been an amoeba or something that got in there.
Zach says, I remember all the media back in the 2000s about scenarios like this, and it always used to give me such bad existential dread. Yeah, I mean, you can't live your whole life worrying about this kind of shit, because probably it won't happen to you, but, I mean, it might. It happened to these people.
Yeah, during this time, the intelligence agencies and everything of the administration, it didn't matter the administration. They're all the fucking same. We're using all the fucking fear they could to try to get people to pass that fucking Patriot Act, which basically turned the United States into a fucking police state, and it's still in effect. Which they should have never done that. That should have had a sundown clause on it. But I don't know if they'll ever. They have to get rid of that. That shit there. It's too tempting for them. They can kill American citizens with it if they just say you're a terrorist.
Yeah, there's all kind of crap.
There's all kinds of fucking back doors into there. They can snoop and spy on you without any fucking probable cause if they think you're a terrorist. Well, how do you define terrorist? Well, whatever, they can define terrorist as anything that they don't like.
Yeah, I mean, any kind of vague definition like that. It's like, well, they're doing shit I don't like, so.
And in that case, man, the fucking left was right. They were warning everybody. Says, look, man,
we told you, bitches.
Yeah, but now
everybody was protesting.
It doesn't matter though. Both sides will use it. They'll use it against each other. They'll use it against their enemies. It's too dangerous. That's why a lot of that shit's got to be dismantled. That RFK guy, that Kennedy guy, that's a good Democrat. I like that guy. Everything he's telling you people is true. That's what's happening at the federal level. It's all grift and power, and they're bad people.
I mean, although I feel like that's been going on forever.
Yeah, but they're getting stronger and stronger and stronger. It's just as empires age, they become more and more corrupt and more powerful. The rot just sets in. That's why they don't last long. An empire only lasts about 230 years, 220 years usually before something goes wrong.
Zach says this happened when I was 4. Ooh, way to make me
I
feel
was a grown man
old.
at that time.
I was grown too.
I knew I was going to get called back into basic
I was
service.
working.
Yeah.
Because I remember, like I said, when 9/11 happened, I was at my job.
I was...
Because we watched it on the TV in the break room.
Me and all my fucking service friends were getting ready to fucking rubbing our hands for all that damn military defense contracting grift that was going to come down. We're going to make all kinds of money in fucking... as fucking security contractors, and we did. Most of us ended up being in schools and in training camps, training people. Yeah. And that shit went on for a long time.
Danny says, when 13 O'Clock Podcast goes car shopping, it would be awesome if you guys filmed yourselves purchasing your new car for content, just saying. We might do that if I think about it.
No, I'm probably going to do a private purchase. So I'm probably going to buy from people who are selling. I don't want to go through dealers or car lots.
You probably get a better deal, I mean.
Yeah.
And then I'll sell my car separately.
Yeah. I will try... I'm going to try to get the best deal I can. I'm looking for a couple different types of cars. There's 3 Kias I'm looking at and a couple of Fords I'm looking at. Like I'd go for a Kia Forte, Soul, or maybe a Sorento if the prices were right. And I'd go for a Ford Focus or a Ford Mustang. I want the V6 though, not a GT. I don't need a hot rod. I just want a cool car. I want decent mileage. I'm willing to put some work in them too. So yeah, because I can do work. I'm a fucking qualified mechanic. I can rebuild engines if I want to. So there was even a damn fucking across the street, the guy's selling like a 200,000 mile fucking, what is that thing?
I thought you said it was a Crown Vic.
No, it's not. It's better than that. It's a Mercury Grand Marquis.
Mercury Grand Marquis, that's right.
Which is a loaded out fucking.
Like
it looks.
I think it's older than my car though.
Yeah, but
and
it
my
looks
car's
good.
really old.
It looks really good. All leather interior. It's one of those old boats, and even that you can update them. And I know that car real well. Those cars run forever. The thing is, though, I'm thinking, do I want to drive that bitch forever? They're fucking huge. They don't get.
I would rather have something small.
They don't get great gas mileage, but the parts here in the United States are cheap for those and high quality, and it's like a tank. You know, that's all your cop cars and all your old cop cars and your taxi cabs, and that's what a Lincoln Town car is based on. I'd love to get a town car. If I could find a real town car and if it's in good condition, that's a limousine.
I mean, we're just gonna lean into the old person.
If you're gonna be getting an old man car, you get the fucking Lincoln Town car. They have huge.
We're leaning into the elderly vibe.
They have huge air conditioning compressors, man. They will blow fucking straight blizzard. You can set that thing on full blast and it'll freeze you out of the fucking car. Turn it down. Huge AC compressors. And they don't get bad gas mileage either.
Well, we don't drive a great deal.
And it kind of, for the money that you kind of burn up in fuel, you save in repair costs because they don't break off. And if they do break, the parts are cheap.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's
real cheap.
So that's the thing. We're kind of like I said, I'm letting Tom decide. It's his money that he inherited, and he's going to be paying for the bulk of it. Pretty much the only contribution I'm going to be making is whatever I get for my car, and helping to pay for the insurance.
Nah, I'll probably let you keep that money.
Well, you don't have to, like I said, because I would be driving that car too. But the thing is, you've driven my car for a long time, and I've paid for the insurance on that by myself for years and years.
It'll be my car.
Yeah, don't put my name on it. My credit is not good.
I won't have to finance it. I could pay for it straight up.
Yeah,
I'm looking for something in the like between. I've seen some good deals at 4,000, but I can go as high as maybe 7, 8, maybe.
Yeah, I think anything over that would be a waste.
Yeah.
Because you can get something really, really decent.
Yeah, here in Florida, you
for
can
that
get
amount of
that
money.
6,000 area. There's a lot. You can get a lot of decent shit for like 6,000-7,000.
And you could just pay for it outright and not have to finance it, and then
don't
just
worry
about the
that damn
insurance.
insurance or anything.
Yeah, you can just get lesser insurance.
I'm just gonna fucking pay for it all at
interest
once.
And shit like that.
And I still have money left over. I could buy a motorcycle if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would. I could buy a fucking used Indian or a used Harley with what's left.
Ooh, I got way behind in the comments. Whoops. Yeah, Zach says, by the way, Steve Mara got back to me on Facebook. And I'm sure I'm doing his head in with all my not knowledge about parapsychology.
Well, yeah, okay, so did you learn anything?
I mean, we'll see.
All right.
Let's see. Yeah, Camp Guy is saying that maybe the amoeba you were talking about was called Niglaria fowleri, the brain-eating amoeba.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. They said it attacked his brain.
Yeah.
They couldn't, and it killed him quick, like a week. A week later, he was dead.
Yeah.
And they fought the whole thing.
Which that's kind of fucked up. It's just like tell your loved ones that you love them, because you never know when they're gonna like drink a bad bottle of water or go get in the mud or something like that, and they'll be dead a week later. You don't know. You know what I mean? Appreciate everybody while they're alive.
It's sad, when a little kid dies just unexpectedly for something so stupid.
Just like a stupid,
being a kid playing in the fucking
That's
mud.
what I'm telling you. Nature does not give a single fuck. It's not malevolent, but neither is it benevolent. It's just indifferent.
Yeah.
So, gotta watch your ass out there. But even if you do watch your ass, like I said, who would kind of think that you're just like out farting around in the mud one day and then a week later you're dead? So, but it does happen. Like I said, universe don't care about you. Just gotta like enjoy your fucking time while you're here. Make the best of shit.
I'm leaning towards a Kia Soul. I like that car. I rented one and drove it. I liked it. And a Ford Focus. One of those two. Kia Forte looked good too, but just depends on what I can get a good deal on.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it a lot, but like I said, the ultimate decision is going to be yours, mostly because, one, it's mostly your money, and two, I'm not super picky. Like I said, all I really care about is I don't really want a manual transmission. I can drive them, but I would prefer not to. And I just want something that's reliable, that's not going to break down on me if I drive it somewhere by myself.
In this area, there's a lot of good deals on the manual transmissions because
I don't really give a shit what it looks like,
because they can't sell them to girls, and they're already modded. They have good wheels on them and shit. The guys got good exhausts on them, and they're like, now they've been hot rodded. That means that he's probably run the piss out of it. But
yeah, I don't love that. But
I
don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see how it goes. Like I said, maybe we'll film it if it's interesting. But I told Tom, it's like maybe we should just like film ourselves just doing regular ass shit. Because maybe people would like that, but I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. Just like hanging out. It's like going to, like today we went to Mamiji.
Yeah.
I took time to lunch today, and then we went to Publix and bought random shit. So maybe people want to watch us do that. I don't really know. Yeah, Camp Guy said, my son was about 4 years old on 9/11. Today his daughter is 5 and in kindergarten. Yeah, it seems... I was going to say it doesn't seem like that long ago, but it does seem like that long ago. I mean, when 9/11 happened, I was at, not my first job, but my first big major graphic design job. I had been there for a couple of years. I'd been married several years. So, but it was a long time ago. A long time ago. It seems like a long time ago. Mrs. Evans' arty party is here. We had a 2014 Focus and it was horrible.
What was wrong with it?
Yeah, I'm not really. Yeah, I don't know.
If I got a good deal on a V6 Mustang, maybe like that 2005. I think it's 2005 to 2000. What was it? 9. That first revamped one. I liked how that looked. The thing is they're all kind of high mileage. But I had a Mustang, an SN95 Mustang that was high mileage, and rebuilt the motor because I bought it with a fucking blown motor. And that bitch ran fucking, you could run it into the ground. But I just got sick of driving a big, heavy, low to the ground fucking boat, basically. Yeah. That's what they feel like. The old ones did.
Yeah, I didn't love driving it. Like, I didn't mind it that much, but it did seem like super heavy.
Yeah.
Dom the Bomb said, I miss your post-cinema reviews. Those were fun. But we did see a bunch of movies that I wouldn't have watched otherwise. Saad said, you guys did the theater visit vlog, so you kind of did it before. Yeah, it's just, I never think about it, I guess. It's like, but maybe I should. It's like content is content, right? Zach says, here's something to make you feel old. We have teenagers learning to drive this year, born the year the first iPhone came out. Yeah. I mean, I already feel old, but thank you. Thank you for that little thing. Mrs. Evans' arty party said, we have a 2016 Edge, and we love it. The Focus had a really weird transmission, and it was always in the shop for that. Everything was so janky on that.
Oh, yeah, that was that double automatic transmission. Yeah, they said that there was a class action lawsuit behind that particular one. I think that was only with certain years, though.
Danny says, live your life cautious like Meryl Streep's character in Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events movie. I didn't see the movie. I read all the books, though. The books are awesome. But I kept meaning to get around to watching the movies, but I just never did. But I love the books. They're funny. Yeah, she says everything broke one after another on the Focus, and it was a rough ride, but really fun to drive. I felt the same way like a long time ago when I drove, I think it was a Chevy Cavalier. Holy crap. You could just tell from driving that around. I'm like, wow, this is really a piece of shit.
Yeah. The Kia Forte is in the same class, and everybody seems to like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of high mileage ones out there.
We'll see how it goes.
And I saw a mechanical review, looked at the undercarriage. It's a simple car, but it looks like it's put together pretty well, for the money. You could get a lot of car for your money, but you get a lot of... I have to go... What they're offering used on Ford Focuses, man, they're you get a lot of for your money. But like I said, maybe it's because they're having problems.
Yeah.
Although
And like
some
I
people
said,
swear by them,
I mean, like I said, we don't drive a great deal.
Yeah.
We just...
Something to go to the club and back.
Yeah, we just go to the club and back a couple
Yeah.
times a month. Go up the street to the grocery store,
Yeah.
down to the Chinese buffet. That's about the only place we drive.
People seem to love the Kia Soul. Very few complaints in the comment sections, and they got them out there fucking 300,000 miles. They've done work on them, but
Yeah, you got to kind of do work on it.
yeah.
All right, so Xanada just arrived. So hi, Xanada. This seems a nice place to insert that he has sent us yet another movie, which I've been wanting to see for a very long time. This movie right here, which is called Come and See.
Yeah, and that is the Criterion edition.
Yeah, which is a Russian film.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been wanting to see this for a really long time. We will probably review this because we still have to do The Departed. So we'll do that one because he sent that one too. And we'll do that one on Monday, and then we'll do this one the following Monday.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I'm really excited to see this. I'm excited to watch The Departed again too, but I'd have already seen that. But I'm excited for Tom to see it because I think he'll really dig it. All right, so do you want to get into this
Yeah, go ahead.
thing
Go ahead.
now? All right.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of talked about it at the beginning, but then we kind of went off on a thing because Tom's sitting there going, "Well, how much material do you have?" And I was just like, "Well, that depends on how many sidetracks we go off on." And he's like, "Well, do I need to add on to it because it's not enough?" And I was just kind of like, "No, there's
Yeah,
plenty.
she showed me how much there is.
There's plenty." But like I said, don't, because I have my notes, but it's like don't always think about. I mean, sometimes that's a good gauge of how long it's going to be, but not always, because sometimes some of the shit I can skip, or it's not really that important, or whatever. Or if there's a paragraph, I can just summarize that in a second or two.
Because I can bullshit if I want to. I'll pad that shit out, man.
Well, I know.
I can
well,
pad out a show. Pad the fuck out of a show.
Well, yeah, everybody knows that,
Yeah.
Tom. You're very good at that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guilty of it too, because especially if we get off on a topic that I'm really into, like horror movies or something, I'll talk about that shit all night. And then it's just 6 hours long. It's like, whoops, probably should have talked about the topic, but oh well. But that's why I like the sidetrack show so much, because I don't have to worry about it. Although I do I find all this stuff interesting, but I find all the sidetracks interesting too. But I guess most of you guys do too, or you wouldn't be.
Some people complain about it.
Not so much anymore. I don't really
We chased all those off.
Yeah, I guess anybody that would have whined about that,
They're long gone,
pissed off a long time ago. So you know what I mean. I really don't get that many negative comments anymore. So, which I guess is good.
They gave up.
I get
Well,
it was a war of attrition. It's just
Part of it
look,
was-
if you don't like it.
Part of it is when the show is new, people are more critical of you, they know how the show should be. But
Yeah,
if the
I
show
never
has
really
been
got-
around for a long time, they just kind of shut the fuck up. There's no change in them people.
Right.
They've been around 10 years. They must be doing something right.
Yeah. I mean, it's not
Well,
quite that long, but yeah, it's a long
A
time.
lot of it had to do with the fact that
Maybe
we
8
just
years,
kept
8 years.
at it. We
Yeah.
just didn't give up. We forced YouTube to deal with us.
Well, and the thing is, it's I could pretend to be a certain way for not that long actually. Now that I'm thinking about it,
It's
so
gonna come out. We can't pretend.
Like I said, we're just being the way
Yeah.
we regularly are. This is literally no different than we would be if you were here in the house with us.
Yeah. Guys I grew up with are making comment. His nose exactly what I've always been like this.
That's what I mean. We're
And
just
fucking
exactly the
our
same.
club friends, fucking
exactly the
like
same.
David. He'll come in there and go, "Yeah, I see you guys. He hangs out with us. So
Yeah.
he knows how we are."
Yeah, I've known him forever.
This is exactly
I think
how-
I've known him for longer than I've known you.
Probably.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about
Probably.
it.
But this is just how we do it.
Yeah, we're just acting the way we would normally act. And if people want to whine about it, then they can whine into the void, because I give not one single shit. And I give less of a shit the older I get.
Really, that's good. That's good advice for anybody who has a YouTube show. Who maybe they would know by now. If you want to make a YouTube show, just be yourself.
Just do your own shit, man.
Because
people who like it will hang around.
Yeah.
People who don't will fuck off.
Yeah.
Win-win. Because you don't want those people hanging around anyway, whining at you all day long.
Like
you should do it like this, and you should piss off and mind your own fucking business and make your own show. If you know what I mean.
They got this skinny, goofy little dude called Review Bra.
Oh, thank you very much, Mrs. Evans.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Got a super chat.
Thank you for a super chat.
We love that.
And if you're listening to recorded, we also accept super thanks. We respond to every single one of them. But no, they got a guy who never would have been noticed had he not just been himself, and that was that Review Bra.
Yeah.
And he's just this skinny guy in a suit, young guy in a suit.
For
a while, he was living out of his car.
I kind of love that guy.
Reviewing fast food. And he's just awkward as fuck, but he's kind of like Mr. Rogers.
He's very endearing.
Something mesmerizing about his fucking behavior.
And obviously it struck a chord.
Yeah, because he's huge.
Yeah, because he's got
huge.
a massive amount of followers.
Yeah, and he's just being himself.
And he's like unapologetic about it. And like I said, he's not playing a role. That's what he's really like.
Just a weird dude.
And he just started making videos and people responded to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of the best way to go about it.
If he tried to be something he wasn't, he never would have made anything.
Yeah, because if you try to be like, look at us giving advice like we're some million subscribers or something, which we don't are, 14,000 subscribers.
Though.
I mean, I don't know about that, but new people find us all the time because I'm always getting messages. It's like, oh my god, I just found you guys.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You gotta search for certain things to find us. Yeah.
But I mean, the thing about it is that there's so many people, and one piece of it, I don't usually give advice because I remember I had a professor a long time ago, and he gave a piece of advice that said unsolicited advice always blows up in your face.
Yeah.
So I've kind of kept to that to that tenet. But I will say that it's always better. There's a lot of people out there trying to do a popular thing.
Yeah.
Like if somebody gets real big doing a particular thing, then there's going to be a whole bunch of other channels trying to do that same thing because that person got 1 million subscribers. So if I do this thing that's similar, then but that's not how it works though. No. You kind of have to just do your own thing and hope that you find an audience and hope that you find a niche because you can't be someone else. And you're not going to enjoy it anyway. It's going to be just like a slog.
You will not be able to maintain that facade.
No. So, like I said, if people don't like us just sitting here farting around and talking about a topic most of the time, but just then talking about porn and food and cats and other things, then, oh well. Go find another channel. I'm sure there's a bajillion. The internet is vast.
Yeah.
You can find other shit that you like.
Santa says when he talks to me on over Messenger, voice, because we trade voice messages, he says I sound just like I do on the show.
Yeah, well, like I said, people can believe me or not, but it's like I've known you for years and years and years. You're exactly the same. You're not putting on anything. This is exactly what he's like.
Yeah, even when I'm sleeping.
When he's exactly like that even when he's sleeping. You're almost as noisy.
Tell him what happened last night.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So last night I had one rum and coke before bed, okay? Yeah. We were just kind of sitting there. We were watching, which one of you guys recommended American Nightmare? Yeah. That shit was fucked up. We watched that last night.
Yeah.
On Netflix. That was one of the craziest true crime things I've ever seen. But yeah, so we were watching that, and I said, you know what? I don't usually, but I was like, I'm going to get a drink. I just had one. So I had a rum and coke. And so I was drinking, so that whole thing was predicated upon drinking rum and coke for some reason. It makes me wake up a bajillion times at night because I have to pee, right? So I had to get up 3 or 4 times. So I woke up at 3:30-ish, something, to go to the bathroom. So I come back and get in bed, and Tom is talking.
Yeah. And
kind of thrashing around, which he used to do a lot. You haven't done that in a long time because you used to have real bad nightmares.
Yeah.
But that was a long time ago. So he was doing that again. He was kind of fighting and talking to somebody and stuff. I'm like, are you talking to me? Are you awake or whatever? And then I get in bed and he says, I had a dream. And for a second I thought he was still asleep because I said, what'd you dream about? And he didn't answer. And then I was like, what'd you dream about? And he's like, I dreamed that all these people were coming in our hotel room and I had to shoot them all. And I was like, what people? And he was like, Star Wars people.
Yeah, Star Wars people.
Star Wars people.
Yeah.
So all of these people, and he told me about the dream like earlier today, and I was just like,
I fell back asleep.
all of his dreams are like about fighting large groups of people, like he has to kill them all. I think the reason, and I told him, I was like, I think the reason that you dreamed about people breaking into our hotel room was because we had watched American Nightmare before we went to sleep, which, if you haven't seen it, it's a true crime miniseries. It's 3 episodes on Netflix about a real thing that happened in California, I think back in 2015, I think it was. And it was about a home invasion and ended up being like about a serial rapist. So I think he was like thinking about that.
I had a dream. Me and Jen were in basically kind of like a love motel type of situation. We were all scantily clad and shit. We had like a bondage style canopy bed and everything.
Was there a heart-shaped tub in the room? Please tell me there was.
I didn't see that.
Oh, okay.
And there was a party going on outside the door, so I opened up the door and I looked out there, and there was like a whole nightclub out there, and there was a stage, and there were 2 girls dressed like those Twi'leks from fucking Star Wars, you know, a red one and a green one, and the red one was fucking stacked. She's fucking dancing, and all the people are fucking watching, and they're all kind of like in Star Wars outfits, but there was kind of a fetish. So I was okay, yeah, that's cool. So I shut the door and walked away from the door, and the door opened back up, and a girl came in, and I went, and she was drinking. She had a drink, and I said, no. I turned her ass around. I said, this is our room. Get the fuck out of here. You know, fucking ushered her back out, went to shut the door, and the door
that's not like you, Tom.
Yeah,
because normally you've been like, come on in.
No, but fucking
jump in the middle.
Ushered her back out. And I said, no. You were in the bed, fucking talking to me. I shut the door, and as soon as I shut the door, I had my hand on the knob. I felt the knob twisting, and the door pushing, and it wasn't that girl. It was like several people pushing, and I fucking locked it, and just made it. But they broke the door open. The door went fly open. I could just see a mass of people, and out of nowhere, I already had a fucking pistol. It felt like a fucking 40 or a 9mm full-service pistol. So I just let out a fucking cone of fire. Probably let off around 30.
He's just shooting arrows.
10, 12 rounds. I could hear them hitting, you know, I could hear what it sounds like when they hit bodies, you know, it kind of sounds like a bubble going through a damn water jug. I know I'm hitting them, but I can't really make anything out. I just see limbs and shit. And I fucking woke up. I was fighting.
Yeah, you were like,
they were still coming. Yeah, I couldn't shoot them
I was
off.
like on the edge of the bed because he was like taking it.
It was a wave of them like a fucking something out of the zombie movie. Didn't matter how many of them I was killing. They were just coming in like a fucking flood. It was like fucking from World War Z. But they were people. And they were dressed like Star Wars fucking people.
Star Wars people.
Yeah,
that's
dressed like fucking sand people.
He told me, he said Star Wars people, and then like 5 seconds later, he was snoring again.
Yeah.
So he just
they were
told
dressed
me
like fucking sand people, and they were dressed like the dudes that were fucking in Rebel soldiers.
One thing I will note, though,
from the Rebel Alliance and shit,
is that, Tom, one of the details that you pointed out to me in the dream was that, because he told me about this dream earlier today, and he was just kind of like, yeah, we were in this motel, and it's like, we were scantily clad. He said, so we must have just been fucking. That's what he said. And,
it's like a love motel.
Right. And so, but then later in the dream, he says, I pulled the pistol out of my waistband.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I know.
Did you not have a waistband? Or did you have like your gay panties on?
It doesn't make any sense. It's in a dream, a fucking weapon.
Okay.
It could have been
I call him his gay
when
panties.
When I need something, it could be a flamethrower could have appeared in my hands in the middle of a dream. I could have been in a G-string 1 minute and having a flamethrower the next. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, technically, those what are those manties that you have? What do they say on them? Jock mail?
Yeah.
Jock mail. Yeah. His manties.
Why is she talking about my underwear?
Well, because I was like, had you had those on,
yeah,
then yeah, technically you could have had a pistol. That's kind of what I was imagining.
Yeah. No, I pulled it out in the back of my waistband.
Especially the pair that you have that's like a jock strap. I was kind of imagining
I instantly had...
Because I was imagining it.
I instantly had clothes on. I had pants on.
Oh, okay.
You know, I had pants on and a belt and everything. Sarah's pistol. Yeah.
And you're just like, I'm going to fuck up all these Star Wars people.
It happened fast.
I thought that was funny.
A wave of Star Wars people tried to come in.
I didn't have any, but I guess because I'm used to watching true crime shit, and it's just like I don't want to say I'm desensitized to it because I'm not, but I don't usually have nightmares. Well, sometimes I do, but not about the one we saw last night. Although the one we saw last night was like super disturbing, just because it was so fucking weird. That was one of the weirdest fucking cases I've ever heard of. Super fucking weird. Like, watch it; it's good. You will And I've seen like and read about a lot of weird true crime cases, but that one went in directions I did not expect. Let's say that. So Murder Hornet keeps telling you to look at Messenger.
Yeah, man. Come on.
He's busy. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm working, dude.
Tammy says people want to have an orgy with you, Tom. Maybe that's what it is. They're just very, very aggressive about. They're very aggressive about it. They're very aggressive about it. We do get people like, I don't know what people just want to have threesomes with us. I don't know what it is. That's gone on for a long time. They're not like trying to break into the hotel room to the extent where they get shot. But
I got sidetracked. I was listening to what he said.
No, I said for a long time, like people always seem to want to have threesomes with us.
Yeah.
And foursomes.
Yeah.
But
and my ex-girlfriends.
Yeah. It's a whole thing.
and their husbands.
It's a whole thing. But like I said, as far as I know, they're not breaking into our house
Yeah.
or anything.
Yeah.
So you know. Okay. So I guess we should probably start talking about this now. I mean, we haven't been yapping too long.
No, we're warmed up.
We're kind of warmed up. Like I said, I did pregame slightly. I drank like a little bit.
Yeah, we're drinking rum and coke
before the show started.
I had a fucking stiff one, man. Stiff one. Sounds like a damn. Like I had a stiffy.
Yeah, you did have a stiff one.
No, this is fucking strong, man.
You did.
Hopefully, I'll be able to make it.
You'll be all right. I'm still only on my first one, but this is also very strong.
Yeah.
Because it's probably a mistake when I make my own drinks, because I'm just kind of like, I pour the liquor in there first, and I'm just kind of like, that's not enough. And then I put ice in, and then I put the soda in.
Yeah.
Then I'm just like, that was probably too much. Oh well.
That's not Bacardi.
I'll sort it out. It'll be all right. But I like to like loosen up a little bit. So yeah. So probably, like I said, we went a little bit into this. Probably anyone that was alive at this time period, and you know, I can't really, say that across the board because obviously Zach was only 4 when this happened.
It's fucking hilarious.
So that's so crazy to think about.
That's hilarious.
So, like I said, yeah, pretty much like everybody that was alive and sentient at the time that 9/11 happened, like remembers that. Just like I not only remember that, I remember vividly when that shuttle exploded in 1986.
Yeah.
I remember that too. And that was 1986. Yeah. 1986. I think I was in 7th grade, 8th grade, something like that.
Space shuttle was the dumbest thing ever.
Well,
dumb.
You know,
dumb design.
They don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
It was cool at the time.
Yeah.
I used to go and see the launches all the time. But that was that was super upsetting. So I remember that, and I remember 2011. But I remember the fucking hype that happened after this. And I understand why everybody thought it was related, because whoever did it, whether it was Dr. Ivins, who we're going to talk about in a bit, whether it was really him or not, whoever did it seemed to, at least on a surface level, want people to believe that it was connected. You know what I mean? Now, the case, as far as I'm aware from what I could glean from the research that I did, the case is, I guess, closed because the FBI determined, well, Dr. Ivins was the guy that did it. He acted alone, and therefore, it's over. Like, we don't really have to look for anybody else. There is still some controversy about that over whether that dude did actually do it or not, but I don't know. Like I said, the evidence against him is circumstantial, but there is a lot of circumstantial evidence. So we'll get into that in a bit. I'm not really sure if I can go right to the point where I was like, oh yeah, that bitch totally did it. But, I mean, it does kind of seem... I'm probably like 85% I think he did it. You know what I mean? And he probably acted alone because he seemed kind of like a nut. So, I'm just going to say. So, as I mentioned, anthrax is a naturally occurring compound. It can go in you like lots of different... It can kind of like go through your skin. You can breathe it in, shit like that. As far as I know, the pulmonary or inhalational version, which is like the spores and stuff, I think that is the most deadly. And as I mentioned before, that is, I believe, between 80 and 90% fatal. When you get that. But it does occur in nature, but it's very, very rare. You can get it from contaminated meat, like from cows and stuff. You can get it from dirt. You can get it from different places, but it's very unusual. Before this attack, the last person in the United States that had died of anthrax was in 1976, and I believe that was naturally, that they had got that naturally, like it wasn't terrorism, obviously. So here's what happens. So after the terror attacks happen, On 9/11, 2001. A week later, on September 18th, there are 5 letters containing anthrax spores that were sent from a mailbox. They were all sent from the same mailbox. They later determined it was in Trenton, New Jersey. Now, it took, a few days, obviously, for these letters to turn up where they were sent. Now, the letters were addressed to the New York Post. One was addressed to the National Enquirer. One was addressed to ABC. One was addressed to CBS. One was addressed to NBC. Now, when they first arrived at these places, no one thought anything unusual about it because they get, thousands of letters all the time. And it's just kind of like, so they didn't really think anything was weird. They just got these weird letters and they're just like, okay, whatever. Now, one of them was specifically addressed to Tom Brokaw. Now, he didn't open it, but, because they have interns for that. The woman that did open it, whose name was Casey Chamberlain, and she was his assistant. Now, she said the only thing she commented was she's like, well, the letter looked like a kid had written it, because if you see the letters, they're like black, there's block letters and they're like photocopied and stuff. And she's like, they seemed weird, but, and there was a weird substance in there, but she didn't know what it was. She said it kind of looked like brown sugar.
She said it was like sand and brown sugar.
Sand and brown sugar, like, mixed together. Like, she didn't know what it was, and she was just like, okay, whatever. Like I said, that's probably what most people would think. You wouldn't think this is a deadly pathogen. Thankfully, she did not get sick. Some people did not that handled it, but you know what I mean. Now, it so happened that on October 4th, there was a guy named Robert Stevens. Now, he actually worked at the National Enquirer as, like, a photo editor, and he had handled one of these letters as well that came to the National Enquirer, and he was actually hospitalized. And he was the first person to be diagnosed with inhalation anthrax. Now, at this stage, because, there hadn't been a pattern established yet, obviously, authorities were just kind of like, oh, well, they didn't connect it with the letter that came into the National Enquirer because, like I said, why would you? And they were just like, well, he must have got it naturally somehow. Like I said, he must have got it from the soil, or he's been hanging around a cow that had anthrax or something. So they didn't really think about it. And really, as I said, because these letters were kind of spread out and they didn't really like connect them at first. Like I said, it seems, in hindsight, it seems like they should have, but I can understand why that didn't happen. So basically, like, Casey Chamberlain, the woman that opened the Tom Brokaw letter, she did kind of get sick from the anthrax, but she didn't die from it, thankfully. She did actually go to the doctor to report her symptoms, but because anthrax is so rare, they didn't think of that. They just thought, oh, well, maybe she's having a reaction to some medication she was taking or something like that. Another one of Tom Brokaw's assistants also got sick around this time, but again, they didn't really diagnose that as anthrax because it wasn't really utmost in anyone's mind. Now, the day after Robert Stevens went to the hospital, he was the guy that worked at the National Enquirer, he actually died. So he was the first anthrax death. Now, 4 days later, or 3 or 4 days later, on October 9th, there were 2 more letters that had these anthrax spores in them, and they were mailed, again, from the same mailbox in Trenton, New Jersey. Now, this time, the letters were addressed to 2 Democratic senators. One of them was Tom Daschle from South Dakota, and one of them was Patrick Leahy, who was from Vermont. Now, at this point in time, Tom Daschle was the Senate Majority Leader, and Patrick Leahy was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Now, the letter that was addressed to Senator Daschle, obviously he didn't open it. They have assistants and stuff like that for that. Now, that letter was opened by one of his interns on October 15th, whose name was Grant Leslie. Now, at this point, they kind of had heard about the other letters, so they were kind of a little bit more on alert. So basically the intern opened the letter and was like, oh my God, what the fuck is in here? And, alerted the authorities. So they actually immediately closed down the House and Senate buildings, and closed them for decontamination, because by this time they had determined this is a pathogen. We need to do something about it. Now the letter that had been addressed to Patrick Leahy, they didn't actually find that one until about a month later, because it turned out that somebody at the Postal Service had misread the zip code, so it got sent to a different place. It got sent to a mail annex, at the State Department. It was just in this barrel, along with a bunch of other ones, but they did eventually find it. Now, the letters, both of the letters that had been addressed to the senators, they had a fictional return address on them. One of them had passed through the Hamilton Township Postal Facility, and one the Brentwood Postal Facility. So the day after the Daschle letter was found, there was a worker at the Hamilton Township facility that tested positive for cutaneous anthrax, which is the kind that goes through your skin, which is bad but less lethal. You know what I mean? Although I think in this case, I can't remember if this was the person that died or not, because a couple of them did. Another worker got sick on October 17th. Now, they closed the Hamilton facility down on October 18th because they wanted to test everything for anthrax and kind of try to decontaminate it. But the Brentwood facility stayed open, even though 2 workers there, Thomas Morris Jr. and Joseph Cursine, started to get sick. Now, on the documentary that they had on Netflix, relatives of those 2 men are still pretty mad about it, which, understandably, because they were like, well, look, they closed the Senate and House buildings, they closed this other postal facility, but this one, they just kept making us still come to work, even though they knew there was fucking anthrax in there. What is that bullshit? And then 2 guys ended up dying. Spoiler alert. Now, the letters that had, the letters from the first batch, not the ones that had been sent to the senators, but the ones that had been sent to the media, had these letters in them that were written in block letters. So one of them says, 9/11/01, this is next. Take penicillin, which is spelled wrong. Take penicillin now. Death to America, death to Israel. Allah is great. That's what the first one said. And then the letters to the senators said, 9/11/01, you cannot stop us. We have this anthrax. We got this anthrax right here. Yeah. You die now. Are you afraid? Death to America, death to Israel. Allah is great. So that's what that one said. And like I said, you've...
In broken English.
Yeah, that's what they were... I was nice try, bro, but okay.
Yeah. If they can get a hold of anthrax, but they can't... They don't speak fluent English. Man,
right.
The kind of dude that can get a hold of anthrax has a fucking PhD. That's what it's going to take.
Well, as we'll see, that's likely what happened.
Yeah, he's got a PhD. He can harvest it and fucking process it and shit. Or at least has... So, or if he has access to that kind of fucking technology, he's got access to somebody who can write a badass letter. And if you're going to fucking launch that shit, it's going to be a detailed letter. Probably. It's going to be all fucking eloquent. And it's probably going to have something to do with Israel occupying the fucking,
Yeah, you'd think they would have demands.
Yeah, there'd be all kinds of shit. You know what I mean? They would say
people can speak fluent English in other parts of the world. It doesn't sound like an old Western where they had Indians in there going.
Yeah, how
you do this?
Face.
You know what I mean? That's kind of what this letter sounds like.
If you're sophisticated enough to get your hands on anthrax, you're sophisticated enough to write a badass letter.
And I know this is a weird thing to say, but this was some good anthrax.
Yeah.
As in the way that it was administered and the way that was only a handful of people on Earth knew how to do that.
Yeah, if you can get your hands on that, then that means you can get your hands on somebody who can write a badass letter in English. It's going to be
that doesn't sound
a high-end operation. It's not going to be something that a couple of dudes wearing flip-flops out in the middle of fucking Afghanistan with a 75 IQ. No, that's not the guys who are doing it. It's going to be somebody with a PhD. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
access to PhD.
We have this anthrax.
You got PhDs on
you
the
die
team.
now.
Yeah, guys with PhDs are on the team. So
yeah.
no.
So kind of silly.
And they're going to maximize the yield out of this mission. So they're going to make all kinds of demands. The shit's going to be fucking very intricate. And it's going to be real persuasive, too.
That's why I think even though there are still lingering theories that maybe this was some kind of like thing that was connected to 9/11, was connected to Al-Qaeda, I'm not sure I entirely buy it because, like, they didn't have any demands. It just seemed like, you know, and maybe this is a weird thing to say because, you know, sadly, like 5 people are dead and like a bunch of other people got infected, but it seemed like half-assed. It didn't really seem like...
Right.
It's terrorism in the sense that you're trying to strike fear in random people, just the same way that whoever the fuck did the Chicago Tylenol thing did, which I don't think they ever caught that motherfucker. But, I mean, they kind of think they know who it is, but they couldn't prove it. But this, it just seemed like if it was the dude that they thought it was, Dr. Ivins, that dude had some other motives and some other issues. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It just doesn't add up. You got a high-end weapon and a low-end letter. Nah.
Yeah.
No. That's not going to happen.
Xanada said this is starting to sound a lot like Ted Kaczynski. Yeah, I mean, similar.
But Ted Kaczynski's letters were the fucking...
Well, they were eloquent.
Yeah, and he was...
Like, he was a nut.
Harvard.
He was a nut, but, I mean, he had, like, philosophical shit, like, to back up all of his
He was a
beliefs.
nut, but he wasn't wrong, per se.
That's what I mean. Well, like I said, you know,
Yeah.
that just because you have mental problems doesn't mean you're not right about some shit.
I don't think Kaczynski was crazy, though. I think he was disturbed, but not crazy. He was
I'm just using that as kind of like
he thought that these corporations were taking over the earth. A lot of the things that he worried about, they're doing. And he was really worried about transhumanism, and the fact that corporations would eventually learn how to make humans as a product, a biological product that they would sell, which is like something out of Blade Runner. And you know, and fucking guy who wrote that fucking he kind of believed the same things that was, because that's really the direction it was evolving to, and that's kind of what they want now. They want to do lab grown meat. You know, I'd eat lab grown meat if it was cheap and it tasted good. I'd eat
if it tasted the same, then I don't really have a problem with it, because it's like, hey, you don't have to kill animals. That's a win.
Yeah, but the thing is, this guy had to be a bargain. And I don't want it all going to fucking fucking Bill Gates. I don't fucking like that dude. He'd want to fucking set up a monopoly. I want 4 or 5 competing companies making that.
Well, the thing about it is that once somebody figures out a good way to do it, then everybody's going to be able to do it. So there's going to be a little startup company and shit like that.
But the thing is, once you can make fucking lab-grown meat, you can make lab-grown human beings.
Why would you want to? We have plenty of those.
Well, the idea is to make superior human beings.
Yeah, I know.
So now you're talking about fucking, what's his name? Fucking Khan Noonien Singh and shit. Fucking
or Gattaca.
Out of Star Work, or something like out of Gattaca. But
that's all right.
Which that may not be a bad thing, but as soon as you start making guys at that level and women at that level, they don't see you as human beings. They see you as the way a human would see a chimp, because they're the next step.
That's
human
okay.
evolution.
Just give me a payoff, and I'll just be over here being a chimp.
Yeah,
just give me enough to live.
But they
on.
wouldn't pay you off; they'd kill you.
Well,
probably. That was the problem in Star Trek.
I finally got that fucking hair.
Got it out of there, good.
Yeah, it's been bugging me like the whole time. It was like stuck behind my glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. Victor says the anthrax was traced back to Texas A&M's lab, and the original sample was sent in for testing from a veterinarian in my hometown, Dr. Bickers. That's pretty cool. Xanada said, you guys should do the Japanese cult that did the sarin attack sometime. Yeah, I've been wanting to do a show about that.
Yeah.
I mean, did we cover that?
No, we talked about doing it. We mentioned them on a show.
Yeah.
But we didn't make a whole show about it.
Yeah, I don't think we did.
The Japanese Jesus.
Japanese Jesus. Anytime somebody comes forward and says they're Jesus, that's a red flag.
Japanese
you just back away slowly.
Yeah, and when he wants you to relieve nerve agent in the fucking subway station, you know that ain't Jesus.
I mean, way before you get to that point, you should have noped out.
Yeah.
Should have noped out. Way before it got to that stage. But cults, man, I'm fascinated by how they work. Like I said, anybody can be sucked into a cult. I like to think that I would never get sucked into one just because I'm so cynical and I don't like people and I'm not a joiner. And anybody that would ask me to, like, join a group of anything, I'm just like, no thank you. But, you know, I don't know.
They always take your best intentions and use them against you. That's what it's all about.
Well, I don't have any.
China.
I don't have any best intentions. So that's how I keep my ass safe.
If you're not very altruistic, and
I am altruistic, but I'm also super lazy.
All you gotta do is just look. Write a fucking Scientology. If you ask this ex-Scientologist why did you join, he goes, "Well, I wanted to help. I wanted to help people. I wanted to help the Earth. Get the fuck out of here. I want to save the planet. Get the fuck out of here." As soon as somebody says like you have the right or the ability to save the fucking planet, planet doesn't want your saving.
Well, the thing
Same
is,
thing
it's
with
like
Christianity.
if you
We're trying
want
to save all these people.
Look, if you want to make shit better, I don't know, just go pick up trash on the side of the highway or something or give money to a bum or something like that. Like, just do something small scale.
Saving
like, if more
the Earth.
people did that, like, you
It doesn't
can't.
happen that way.
Well, no, I'm just saying that you, as one person, can't save the world. You just can't.
It always boils down to the same thing. When they're saying they're trying to save the Earth, it always ends up being, "I will save the Earth if you put me in charge."
Yeah, and we want everybody to be a particular
and then I
way.
fucking kill off the people who are bad, so we only have good people. That's what Mustache Man was doing. Same thing.
Yeah, it's a red flag. Like I said.
It's a red flag when they say we're going to save everybody by getting rid of all the evildoers.
Yeah, because they're like, well, save everybody that we like.
Exactly.
Is what
That's
that
all they're
means.
doing.
Is what that means.
Yeah.
You know, where I'm perfectly willing to tolerate people I don't like as long as they don't fuck with my shit. You know what I mean? It's fine. Just don't get up in my face about it. That's all. And we'll all just get along. Or not. We just won't talk to each other. But just don't fuck with each other. That's all. It's easy. Just mind your own fucking business. That's really all you have to do. Just mind your own fucking business. So, okay. So, as this went on, as far as they know, I'm sure it was probably more. Because maybe some people got infected and they didn't go to the hospital or whatever. But as far as they know, 22 people were infected with anthrax and 5 people died. Out of the 22 people that were infected, 12 of them were postal workers, because that was just shit that was just coming through the facility, and people got, like I said, none of the people that the letters were targeted to, none of those people got anthrax. It was always like the kind of frontline people, like, the interns or the postal workers or whatever, the people down here, the little people that always get kind of fucked over. So there was that. Also, there was a baby who was 7 months old, who was actually the son of somebody that worked at ABC News. They were like a producer or something. And the baby got anthrax, like was infected with anthrax just after visiting the building, like for take your kid to work day or whatever. The kid didn't die, thankfully, but, so that's how insidious this shit is. You can just go to the building that the letter was in and you get it. So they did have, other than the 22 people that were infected, there were also 31 other people that tested positive for exposure to the anthrax spores. And as far as they know, there were about another 10,000 people that they thought may have been exposed, so they gave them antibiotics just in case. You know what I mean? So there were about 35 like post offices, mailroom facilities, stuff like that had to be decontaminated. There were 26 buildings on Capitol Hill that they tested. Out of those, 7 of those buildings had contaminant in there, so had to be kind of closed down for a time. I remember a lot of stuff being closed at that because they were trying to like clean all the shit out. They also had to quarantine like a whole bunch of mail and shit like that. So as I said, 5 people died. Robert Stevens was the first one. He was the guy that worked for National Enquirer. He was the first one that died. Thomas Morris Jr. and Joseph Cursine were both postal workers. They also passed away on October 21st and October 22nd. The fourth person, this was a little bit weird. The fourth person who died was, she actually got the inhalational anthrax, was Kathy, how do you pronounce that Vietnamese last name? I think it's Nguyen or Nguyen or something like that. And Nguyen.
I think it's Nguyen.
I think, or something like that,
Nguyen,
yeah.
I think.
Because I know I've seen other people pronounce that name, and it's not how you think it's pronounced. So she was actually 61 years old. She had emigrated here from Vietnam many years ago, and she worked at a hospital at the Manhattan Eye, Ear, and Throat Hospital. Now, she got anthrax They couldn't quite figure out how she got it because she wasn't in the media. She didn't work in any of the offices where the letters came in, and she wasn't a postal worker. But when they had another woman die, who was a 94-year-old woman named Adelie Lundgren, they figured out that she got it. She was also unrelated. Hey, Pokey. She was also unrelated to the media, or, she didn't work in the post office or anything like that. They think that because the anthrax letters had gone through the postal facility that also delivered her mail, that it contaminated her mail. So she might have got it from that. So like I said, it just kind of fucking spreads, you know what I mean? And people died from that.
It's little particles, it just gets everywhere.
That's what I mean, it's spores.
Yeah.
And that's why everyone's so fucking terrified of it, because it can spread super easily. Like I said, people that weren't even in the vicinity or weren't even there when the letter arrived or anything like that.
It gets in your lungs, you breathe it in, it starts growing in there, it fucks you
Yeah,
up.
and it's super,
it's
super fatal. That's why, like I said, a lot of people are like freaking out about it because, people that weren't even in the fucking buildings and shit got
It's
it.
asbestos, evil twin brother.
That's what I'm saying.
Imagine if asbestos could grow.
Yeah, it's fucked up. Well, like I said, there could be fucking anthrax in here right now. I don't know. Coming through the mail. I don't know. So, because people are the worst, when this whole anthrax thing started, of course, there were a bunch of chuckle fucks out there in the U.S. who thought it would be hilarious to do like hoaxes and stuff. So they're sending letters to their friends with like white powder in there. Ooh, it's anthrax. It's super funny. Super funny. That they know of, there were 15,000 hoaxes reported during this time period. 15,000. And I'm sure that there were more than that weren't reported. So, like I said, cut it out, people. Do better. Don't fucking do that. It's not funny. So, yeah. Now, because of all of these hoaxes and false, like, everybody was freaking out. Like I said, this was literally a month after 9/11. So everyone was a little bit sensitive, as you can imagine. So all of this crap happening and then all of these hoaxes happening, everybody was, like, losing their shit, right? I remember it. So because of that, the CDC and everything like that, they were just like, they had to test everything because, like, we don't know. Like, some of them could be legit. So they had to, like, set up this whole triage system and shit like that. And it was just like a whole clusterfuck. Now, it so happened, one of the biggest perpetrators of this, because we want to name and shame the people that do this kind of shit. One of the biggest hoaxes was this dude named Clayton Lee Wagner. Wagner with 2 A's at the beginning. Now, this chode was already had a very long history of harassing abortion clinics.
History of chodism.
Yeah, history of chodism, of assholery and dickheadery and general chicanery. So, yeah, so he had a long history of, because he was, like, real fundamentalist and stuff. And so he had been harassing women's clinics, abortion clinics for, like, a really long time. And when the anthrax attacks happened, he was like, ooh, what a good idea. So he started sending letters to abortion clinics that had white powder in them. He would put stuff on the envelope that said time-sensitive information, like open immediately, blah, blah, blah. And then it would have all this
talcum
shit
powder, probably.
Yeah, and it had all this powder in it. Yeah. But it's like they had to check everything because they weren't sure. They didn't know where this stuff was going. And then also the letters would have death threats in them, so that's nice.
Yeah.
So he sent a bunch of those. And it's kind of funny because, like, a lot of the abortion clinics or stuff, like, the people that work there are like, yeah, we get this shit all the time. Even before the anthrax shit happened, it's like, so they were, I'm not saying that they weren't scared because they were, but it's just kind of like, yeah, we've been getting death threats for, like, forever. So we're kind of inured to it a little bit at this point.
The abortion clinics, dudes, I'd like to fucking find out more about them, do some fucking psychoanalysis.
Like Operation Rescue?
Yeah. Like,
ooh, let's do a show about them.
Are they really that altruistic that they're trying to save other people's kids?
No.
I wouldn't think so. No. Because I'm like, well, wait a minute, aren't you a Christian? He says, well, yeah. Well, don't you want non-Christian people, don't you want their numbers to dwindle? They should be having as many abortions as possible. And you, if you're a Christian, should have many children as possible. And in a few generations, you outnumber them.
They're not good at math, though.
But they can't. But that's not what it is. They just want to be important.
I'm just making a joke.
Well, yeah. As you listen to Islam, they are telling everybody, have as many children as you can so we can outnumber the non-believers. So they embrace that. And if and they're not attacking abortion clinics. They're like, no, they should have as many abortions. We should build abortion clinics. That's the way Islam would approach it.
Well, I think that
way
the crazy people that picket in front of abortion clinics, for example, I think those people are maybe, well, one, they're nuts, so it's kind of hard to discern their motives. Exactly. They want to be important.
Yeah.
They want to be seen to be doing something that looks like
They're trying to impress their friends how good they
yeah.
are.
And also, I think maybe they think, oh, well, if people have these babies, we can convert them to Christianity. I think that's maybe, but I think that's like way in the back of their mind.
And they're not thinking that way.
I don't think they probably
No.
are. And here's another possibility, that they are just shitty people that don't have anything better to do. There's also that. So
I don't know.
I mean, that's kind of what I think.
I think it should be avoided. I mean, but the thing is that it should also be avoided that people that don't want children shouldn't be having them.
Yeah.
You want to avoid that too, because you can look at the problems. What happens when you have a bunch of unwanted children running around? They end up having being serial killers and fucking criminals. So yeah, you nip that shit in the bud. Don't let the parents have children. So I can understand that. That solves a lot of problems.
Well,
Some of this shit's kind of weird. They're saying they're selling that fetal material, or pulling them kids out of there alive and keeping them alive.
That does not happen.
Let them grow so they can get some.
That does not happen.
That is a fear that some of them have.
That does not happen.
You might be able to do that though.
That does not happen.
Technology might exist.
That doesn't mean it happens, though. That does not happen.
If it was real late term, it would probably live.
We're not even getting into that, because all of that shit.
Kidney'd be worth a lot.
All of that shit is scaremongering. That's
Yeah.
all that is. They just make up a bunch of crazy fucking stories to get their base all excited about it and get them all outraged. That's just what they do. They make up a bunch of shit that absolutely never ever happens. Never. Even if it maybe happened one time, like under some other context or something like that, they will blow that shit out of proportion because they want them all to get mad. They want them all to get outraged. That's how they fire them up.
China has no issues with any of this. Abortion, or they like all that. Selling human body parts, harvesting human parts out of people that are in prison. I'm sure they had no problem with genetic engineering and making designer babies. There's probably a lot of that has already happened, but if it has happened, it would probably be in China, because they don't have any problems with it. But I would like to actually know what the state of the technology is. It's probably ahead of what we're being told. Like I know they can clone. With the old technology, and this is fucking decades ago now, 30, 40 years ago, they were cloning sheep. Now, sometimes there were problems with the sheep. They didn't live that long. But a lot of that had to do with that they were just kind of sucking DNA out of a damn cell and then blowing it back into another cell and getting them to divide and making multiple sheep. Now, it wasn't perfect. You'd have to make like 40 or 50 of them, and most of them wouldn't take. You might only have like 2 or 3 take out of a batch of 50. And then they were exact duplicates. But I would imagine that with today's technology, you could probably, what would happen is when they pulled that DNA out of there, it would break, and it could break again when it went back into the new cell. So the copies weren't real perfect, but you got the copies that were the best. He actually would bear fruit, and things would be born. But I would imagine with today's technology, you could probably get it pretty foolproof with some of these little tiny fucking nanotechnology that they have now. But it's interesting to know how far along cloning and genetic engineering really is. China would know, and it would probably be secret, I would think. They probably wouldn't let it out.
DVD Dragon says Florida Man is the next step in human evolution.
Hell
Lives
yeah.
off the sun and bath salts, can summon a hurricane of gators
Hell
at a
yeah.
moment's notice to
Oh
deal
yeah,
with anyone's
hell yeah.
bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, why have they made like Gator NATO? That'll be the next one.
Florida's the nexus, man. It's the place where everything fucking combines and it creates things like Florida Man. There's Florida Gator. I got him on video biting a dude. It was fucking great. I shared it with some of my friends on
I didn't blame the gator in that situation because the dude looked like, hey, I'm going to go in a ditch and fuck with this alligator. I'm like, well,
yeah.
Fuck around and find out.
Yeah, he fucked around and he found out that he tried to put a towel on that alligator's head. It fucked him up. And his buddy fucking was recording it. Some people were like,
And
well,
not
who's recording
and not
this shit?
helping, which I kind of thought was awesome.
Yeah, I'm like, who's that?
Because he's
dude?
just like, oh well, that's all on you, buddy.
He's very wise, a very
I'm
wise man.
I'm just gonna stand back here and film it.
Recorded by a very
Probably
wise
what
man.
I would do too. Because like, look, if I was with some dipshit friend of mine, hey, I'm gonna go over here and fuck with this alligator. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna stand way back here.
Yeah, and he's in his 60s. This is not a young
If you
guy.
get eaten, I'm just gonna.
This
stand
is a
there.
dude in his 60s.
He was old enough to know better.
old enough to know better.
He didn't die, I don't think.
No, he got away from it.
He got away.
That
but
thing fucking grabbed him and shook him.
that is a wild animal.
You were fucking with him.
I'm not fucking with a wild animal,
Yeah.
especially not a fucking alligator.
Yeah, they're strong. It's just a short burst of power. Lots of strength and
They will
power.
just grab you and drag you underwater, and you
Yeah.
will drown.
Yeah, they
so-
get tired quick, but
I don't.
for a few seconds, they're fucking amazingly strong.
It's like, yeah, ooh, you look like such a badass now, getting dragged underwater by an alligator.
Yeah.
Good job. Taking him out of the gene pool. Although he probably already reproduced, sadly.
I couldn't imagine that dude being from Florida. I think there was somebody who moved here that had balls.
Well, see,
that
I don't-
thought he could do that.
I don't know.
He didn't know how to catch an alligator. For the rule number 1: never try to catch an alligator that's longer than 3 feet long.
That's a good
Soon as
rule.
it starts
Actually,
getting
just
about
don't
4 or
try to
5
catch
feet,
an alligator or a
it's too
snake or
fucking
anything
big.
in Florida.
I once
Period.
Once on the show, I was said I'm gonna fucking do a video. I'm gonna go down and you're gonna record me. I'm gonna catch one of these alligators. And I'm pretty confident I can probably catch one about 4 feet long.
Pretty confident.
Pretty confident, yeah.
Again,
I know how it's done.
I'm just gonna stand back here and film it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna help you if something
Yeah,
goes
jump
bad.
on his back and grab his fucking mouth and hold it closed.
because you
Then-
because
somebody come and tape his mouth shut.
because
and
actions
pull his
have
legs up, tape-
consequences. Actions have consequences.
Yeah, and those fucking tails back there fighting. And then, but what am I going to do with him? I'm not going to do anything with him. I'm just going to let him go. Just get a video of it.
And honestly, like, I don't really understand, like, other than, ooh, look how badass I am. Why would you fuck with a wild animal? Leave them alone. They didn't do
Back in
anything
the
to
day,
you.
we were catching them and killing them to eat them.
I mean, that's something else. Like, if you're
Yeah.
gonna eat it, okay.
Yeah.
But if you're just fucking with it because it's just like, look, I can fuck with an alligator. Ooh, like, look, I'm a badass.
Yeah.
It's just like, piss off with
We didn't
that.
catch them alive, though. We just shot them.
You're just a dumbass, and I hope he eats you.
We just shot him with a 357 Magnum pistol. You fucking go up to him with a fucking rowboat and they'll submerge. Just throw some fish out after a while. When he calms out, he'll come back up and you just fucking shoot him. Pow! And then go over there and get him and put him in the boat.
Like I said, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
If you're just killing it to eat it.
Yeah.
I don't like show-offy people anyway, but it's
Yeah.
just kind of like somebody that's like show-offy like that. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
I just hope you get eaten. Or at least get your arm bitten off so you live to regret it. That would actually probably be better.
In Mississippi, it was legal to spotlight at night for alligator, for gator, and fucking frog. So you could just spotlight the lake, and if you saw glowing eyes, you go, there's an alligator. You go over there and you use a rifle and shoot him from the bank. But then you take a boat out there and go get him.
Yeah, you don't go out there and wrestle the shit.
No, in wrestling.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, and the only thing that's edible is the tail. The tail and the back legs have some meat on them, and it's an acquired taste.
I think it's pretty good. They're actually, I think
It can
they
be
taste
kind of
pretty
dry
good.
and fishy tasting sometimes.
But I don't mind that. I like
Yeah.
fish. So I've had alligator a few times.
Yeah.
I
This is
wouldn't
al-
choose it, but it's good. It's
Yeah.
good.
Alligator sauce piquant.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I wouldn't go out of my way to order it, but if somebody offered me some and it was free and I'd be
Alligator
like, yeah,
etouffee.
it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Xanada said Komodo dragon is cooler than an alligator. Just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, probably.
Yeah, the thing is you don't want to eat those. Those are fucking nasty. They kill
Yeah.
leprosy.
You
and
can't
shit.
eat an alligator, just
You
like...
can eat an alligator. Yeah.
Not the whole thing, but you know what I mean.
You
Yeah,
can
Xanada
eat-
said I had a deep fried gator at the Minnesota State Fair. It was good.
Yeah.
I mean, deep fried anything is pretty good. Not gonna lie.
It's kind of like turtle or fish.
Yeah. I've only had turtle one time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all just kind of like fishy tasting. Which
Yeah.
that's okay with me because I like seafood, but some people do not. If you don't like seafood, then you probably won't like turtle or alligator either
No.
because that's kind of what they taste like. All right, so where were we? So yeah, so we were talking about like these dumbasses that did all these hoaxes and stuff, and I'm just like, I don't get that. This is kind of the same thing because every time there's a big like true crime case that goes national, like, you know, John Benet Ramsey or something like that, there's always a small percentage of motherfuckers that will call them and go, yeah, I did that shit. I don't understand that psychology, but okay. There's always some people out there willing to do that. I don't get it. So, and the same thing about hoaxing. Anthrax, everybody's sending anthrax to each other. Hilarious. So, yeah. Now, in October, mid-October, October 13th, as I said at the beginning, people were kind of initially thinking maybe this is probably related to 9/11 somehow, right? Because it seems like a bioterrorism attack. However, on October 13th, there were a bunch of microbiologists at a particular lab, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, to be specific, and they found out that the anthrax strain that was in all of these letters was the Ames strain. Now, this is a strain of anthrax that was that actually the U.S. Army had acquired in 1981. Initially, it came from a diseased cow in Texas, and then they kind of, built different cultures off it and stuff like that. Now, at this point, like, a lot of the scientists are kind of freaking out because they were like, well, this means that whoever did this is probably an American and probably somebody that works with anthrax, right? And probably not a Middle Eastern terrorist, as they were trying to kind of push at the time. And the thing about the Ames strain in particular was that they knew it was a particularly virulent strain, and that vaccines weren't all that effective against it. They'd been working on it for quite a while. It wasn't just one strain, but it was kind of like the way that it was described on one of the documentaries I saw was that the Ames strain is like a race, but within that, like, there were a bunch of individuals, you know what I mean, that were like all slightly different. But they're like, you could tell like DNA, it was family resemblance, but they were all kind of like different. But it's like this was made to be like a more virulent strain, and it was kind of not entirely resistant to vaccines, but more resistant to vaccines than regular anthrax would be. So once they identified that this was the Ames strain, like an American strain, there was kind of confusion for a time because it's called Ames, which is a city in Iowa. And so for a long time, they thought there was a misconception that it came from Iowa State University, like the labs there. But as I mentioned, the strain actually originated in Texas. They actually harvested it from an infected cow in Texas and then later like grew other things from it and experimented on it. They only called it the Ames strain because it had been mailed from like the postmark on it was like Ames, Iowa or something like that. But it was actually like from Texas. But because of that, there was like a big misunderstanding about, there were rumors going around that that it had been stolen from the lab in Ames. And the governor of Iowa at the time, he like sent all these state troopers to like guard the lab at the university and shit like that. And, all these researchers were trying to send like all of these cultures that they had. Like they had all these cultures, anthrax cultures dating back to like the 20s. And they were trying to send them to like the CDC and everything, but like nobody wanted them. And it was this whole thing. Now, Iowa State University, even though that wasn't where the shit came from, but, everybody thought that it was, they actually ended up destroying their anthrax archive in October because they were like, well, we don't want anybody stealing it. Like, we just kind of feel like there's hold. So they just destroyed it. We don't need it. So there was that whole thing. But like I said, it didn't even originate from there. But because of the rumors, they did that. Now, as I mentioned, because the first letters had been postmarked 1 week after the September 11th attacks, George Bush was in at the time, and they were very keen to relate this to, they were telling everybody that was going out in the media to like, kind of imply that this is Middle Eastern terrorists. It's like connected to 9/11. It's connected to Al-Qaeda, because they really wanted somebody in the Middle East to be blamed for this kind of situation, even though at this point they were pretty sure that it had originated in the United States because of the strain.
They wanted a more incidences to be a Middle Eastern in origin to justify attacking Iraq a second time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
They weren't blaming Islamic people in general. All right. Like during the same time, we still had real good ties with Saudi Arabia and Jordan. So, you know, it was just, it wasn't a blanket thing. They just wanted another reason to attack Iraq.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
I mean, they were coming up with all kind of stuff.
They thought Iraq may have had something to do with 9/11. But they were just going by instinct. Just their fears said that. And they couldn't back off of that. Then they started to say, well, he's also got weapons of mass destruction. There was no evidence of that. They once used biological weapons on the Kurds back.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, but Saddam, okay, a bunch of shit came out later. Saddam had asked all his guys, he says, do we have any of those weapons left? And they were like, no, we got rid of them all. Because they started to become unstable in storage and they're just too hard to store. Most of those weapons, chemical weapons, had to be mixed right before use, but the separate components had to be stored, and they're toxic on their own also.
Yeah, it's
And
kind
the
of a pain in
stores-
the ass.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff has expiration dates on it, where once it goes beyond a certain date, you have to throw it away and dispose of it, and there's a difficult disposal process, and then you have to make more of it, and then it just sits on the shelf again. Saddam told him, he said, look, get rid of all that fucking chemical shit. Because it doesn't matter if we have it or not. What matters is if we have the knowledge to make it. They were like, yeah. So they got rid of it all. They didn't have it.
Because why would you just leave it laying around, especially
Yeah.
if you knew that you were under scrutiny like that?
Exactly. And
Because like I said, if you wanted to make it, you could just make it again.
Saddam was a dick. But the more I found out about him over the years, the more of a good leader Saddam was. He was a very intelligent guy. He was nice. He liked the West. He was not an enemy of the West. That was something the Bushes kind of trumped up. Yeah, there was an attempt on his dad's life, on Bush Sr.'s life, evidently.
Yeah, there was.
But that was vengeance. Because we betrayed Iraq. Iraq was our ally. We'd been supporting Iraq in their war against Iran back in the 70s. So Saddam was kind of a creation of the United States. I was involved in all this shit. I was in during the first Gulf War. Known dudes that were in both of the wars. I was doing shit to support the second war. In the contracting league. It was... America fucking makes more enemies than it ever makes fucking allies. It's lost all its allies now, pretty much.
We're kind of bad.
We're an outcast right now. Us and Israel. The BRICS nations are all against us because we fucked everybody over. Everything we did, we fell to shit. And it's because the fucking United States is addicted to its defeating its military-industrial complex. And this is all foreshadowed and foreseen by General and President Eisenhower. His parting speech says this is a big threat to democracy as we know it. And he's absolutely right. It's just a runaway group of billionaires and corporations that make money off all this shit. If we're at perpetual war, they make money, but it destroys us and our reputation. Your military and your war-fighting capability is supposed to be defensive, to prevent invasion. That's what it's for. It's not to create empires and punish people for not obeying us and shit like that. And that's really what we're doing. We're gangsters more than anything else. It's sad. And it just kind of devolved into this after World War II. But it's a shame. It's coming to an end, though. We're too weak to do anything now. Thank God. Thank God.
I'm sure a lot of other countries in the world are
Yeah.
happy about that.
Yeah.
Murder Hornet said, was in Key West and had conch fritters. Was good as fuck. Yeah,
Yeah.
conch fritters are very good. Danny says, hey, Tom, when you lived in Mississippi, did you ever encounter alligators there?
Yeah, they're in Mississippi.
Yeah, they're all over the
They're
South.
all over.
I mean, Florida's known for them, but they're all over the
Yeah.
South. Anywhere where it's hot enough and there's kind of
Yeah.
swamps and stuff, yeah.
Any little artificial pond on all the private land that my family and my family's friends, we call kin, and whatever they had, we called them kin. All those little ponds that were filled with catfish and filled with little turtles and shit had alligator in them. Some of them big, man. 7 foot long alligator in there. And they wouldn't be there and then they would appear out of the blue because they're jumping from one pond to the next. They can smell water miles away. And they'll walk across and they'll walk.
Well, like I said, in Florida, I've seen
Yeah.
alligators just cruising across the highway.
Just walking.
Doop.
Yeah, like I'm going to this other water.
I'm just going over there. I'm just like, oh, well,
yeah,
I'll
because
be
they get
damned.
bored in one pond. There may not be males or females there. They want to be around other alligators. They want to be where the fish are. And as a little kid, you know, friends of the family would hire me to go to their ponds to shoot all the turtles. And I was shooting turtles with all kinds of rifles, 22, 250.
Why do you shoot turtles, Tom?
Because turtles are kind of like cockroaches.
They're so cute.
snapping.
They're a
turtles.
lot cuter than cockroaches.
They
though.
eat up all the fucking.
I know, but
they eat
they're
up
still
all the
cute,
little
though.
baby fish. You're trying.
Hey, turtles got to eat too, man.
Yeah, but we stocked those.
I know.
All those fish were stocked. You paid to stock them,
couldn't
and then
shoot a
they're
turtle, that's
reproducing,
too
and the little baby catfish and the brim and shit, and the little turtles are eating them. And the turtles, we didn't pay for the turtles to be in there. That's an artificial pond. It doesn't look artificial to a person who's not from the area, but the turtles are brought in by. They'll walk in there, and I think maybe turtle eggs get fucking hung up in bird feathers or something. I don't know. Nah, turtle eggs are kind of big, aren't they? I don't know, but
They are slightly
They
bigger.
get in
Well, I
there
mean, it
somehow.
depends on the species.
They get in there somehow. Turtles fucking walk in there and lay eggs. And the snapping turtles. We're not talking about box turtles. It's a water turtle. I'd be down there, and one time I must have killed 300 of them in a day.
Tom is the turtle destroyer.
Mm-hmm. They paid me like $20. This was back in the 80s.
Wow, $20 whole dollars.
Yeah, it was in the 80s.
Well, yeah,
And I was like 13.
that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Murder Heart says, "How you like that, Tom? LOL." So that must have been something he sent you over.
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's one of his hookers' booties.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to make you like look at your messages
Yeah,
like
yeah.
while you're trying to like do
Yeah,
Joe.
he's trying to show me these girls he's hitting.
Are you drunk, Murder Hornet?
Yeah, he's always drunk.
I mean, we are too, so it's
Yeah.
not that big a deal. Xana said they unearthed the tomb of Gilgamesh 1 year before we invaded Iraq, just saying.
Yeah.
And then it was never talked about again.
Yeah.
Joan Yaramilo? That's how you talk to her all the time, right? Says, "Hi, guys." Yeah, right there.
Where?
Wildcat says, "It's crazy right now." Yeah, it is. Victor says, "We have alligators here in San Antonio." Yeah, they're like all over the South. Big Dog says, "Tom and Jenny, if you haven't yet, check out the movie Deliver Us from Evil." I've been hearing a lot about that. I definitely do want to see that. Like, either we'll review it or I'll just review it by myself, because I have been wanting to watch that, actually. I've heard a lot of good shit about that. So we'll get into it. But yeah, so do you have anything else you need to add?
Yeah, Joan Jaramillo is somebody from our Gothic Orlando.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's who that is.
Because like I said, I thought...
She's in our local friend circle.
Oh, okay, yeah. I thought that name looked familiar.
Yeah.
I knew you'd been like...
Because she just messaged me and I sent her a link to the show.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, so where were we? All right.
Yeah.
This happens all the time. So what happened was that when this shit happened and they determined that the anthrax spores were from the Ames strain, which is a US-based strain of anthrax that they had been cultivating in different labs, then they started looking into, a more homegrown kind of thing. To this end, they honed in on a scientist named Dr. Stephen Hatfill. Now, he was a biodefense scientist. He had worked for what they call, I believe they just pronounce it US AMRID, which is just like this big long acronym. And here's the thing. I was kind of looking up about, like, this dude. I'm not a fan of this dude because of shit he did later. But I'm not going to get into that because it's not relevant. But, because it's kind of shitty, like, what they did to him, honestly. They've honed in on him for, as I said, I'm not in the FBI, so maybe they had information that I am not privy to. But it seemed like they kind of focused on him initially because, one, he had written a novel, which was very similar to the anthrax letter attack. Like, that's what happened in the novel, like, prior to it happening. So they thought that was a little suspicious. Also, he didn't have the greatest track record in terms of his jobs. Like I said, he was a biodefense scientist, but he had been fired from a couple of jobs. He had had some security clearance, but had lost it for reasons that I don't believe were ever released to the public, at least as far as I'm aware. So there was that. He'd kind of been, which may be on the front line, saying like, oh, the U.S. government, they're not like prepared for an attack of this type. And he was there were pictures of him in a magazine where he was like shown like cooking up different like plagues, like different bioterrorism shit, like in his kitchen, showing how easy it would be. So they thought that was like a little bit suspicious, you know what I mean? So they kind of honed in on him. And I will say that, and this happens a lot, I think, in law enforcement investigations, because like I said, I write a lot about true crime, and I'm really into true crime. If you focus on one suspect at like early in an investigation, I kind of feel like you get to a point where you get blinders and you're just kind of like, well, this is our guy, obviously, so everything that doesn't point to that guy, we're just kind of like gonna ignore that or write it off or whatever. But then like whatever this guy does, even if it's really not that suspicious in the great scheme of things, is gonna seem more suspicious in context, you know what I mean? So I kind of feel like that's what happened in this situation. There were a couple of things that he did that seemed kind of sus at the beginning, and so they laser focused on him, and then it took them a long time to shake that off. That's what I'm gonna say about it. He did have an alibi at the for the time that the mailings occurred and stuff like that, but that didn't really seem to matter. So they focused on this guy for quite a while. Like, he did work in the biodefense area, but he didn't work with Anthrax. He was a virus. He said, I'm a virus guy. That was his area of expertise. He didn't really know a lot about Anthrax. He didn't know how to make it or how to make spores or anything like that, which is apparently like a really difficult process, and not that many people know how to do it. So, so he kept trying to say like, look, man, it wasn't me. Like, I didn't, this isn't even my thing. But there were some suspicious things about him, and they did have to look into it. I get that. Also, they thought that he had a motive because he had been fired from yet another job only like a month before the Anthrax attacks happened. So they thought that it was some kind of like vindictive sort of thing. And man, they hounded the shit out of this dude. They just followed him everywhere. They searched his house. They didn't find anything particularly damning. He was under surveillance pretty much constantly. And at one point, the FBI, like the people that were watching him, like ran over his foot with their car. And they announced to the national media his name, that he was a person of interest. So, his career was ruined. His life was kind of ruined. Shit like that. So basically, they kind of just considered him a suspect for a long time. Now, he eventually did sue, after they had moved on to the suspect who probably did do it. But he believed, I've seen different figures like in the media, but it was between $4.6 and $5.8 million settlement he got, I believe, because they kind of fucked up his life a little bit. So he did get a settlement in the end. But after they stopped focusing on him, what ended up happening was that in 2001, they did have like a DNA and shit like that, but it wasn't that great. But by the time 2006, 2007 came along, the DNA sequencing and shit like that was much more, was much better. So at this point, the investigation kind of goes in a different direction because the DNA, they sequenced the strain, of the Ames variant of the anthrax. And they actually, in 2006, were able to pinpoint it to a single flask. So this flask was under the the guy that made it, and the guy that had most contact with it was a dude named Dr. Bruce Edward Ivins. So they started concentrating on this guy. So this guy was a microbiologist. He's dead now. He had worked in the Army's biodefense lab in Fort Detrick in Maryland. Now, the thing about him is because he was definitely an anthrax guy. He was actually one of the world's leading experts on anthrax. And because of this, he was brought into the investigation quite early on for his knowledge. They were asking him who would have the knowledge to make anthrax like this. Like, do you know of anybody that would do? So he was brought in, and he was very, very helpful. He gave them names and all kind of stuff. So the thing about it, he particularly named 2 people in his particular lab that he thought, oh, maybe they were the ones that did it, because he was saying, and they did find this out from other experts later on, that the particular strain that was seen in the letters was, you wouldn't have just been able to, it wasn't like some fucking junk ass shit that you could just pull off. Like, it was the way that it was processed, you would need like some super expensive, like high tech, equipment to do that. You know what I mean? Because I don't know how it all works. I'm not an anthrax scientist, obviously.
Not terrorist level. They're talking about nation-state level.
Yeah, they're saying it's like somebody...
major corporation level.
Yeah, they're talking about somebody that had really specialized knowledge to do this, So that's why they kind of started asking all of these kind of top researchers in the anthrax area, like, who do you think would have done this, blah, blah, blah. So Ivins was... They kind of looked at him as a suspect or a person of interest, like sort of, like early on in the investigation. But then after they started concentrating on Hatfill, they kind of forgot about him for a bit. But he was still like kind of helping them with their investigation, like giving them all of this information and stuff. But after, in 2006, when they actually pinpointed, they were able to sequence the DNA of that particular strain, and they were able to pinpoint exactly where it came from, and it all came from that one particular flask. So this one flask, which just had, and there's pictures of it everywhere. It's just a fucking flask, and it has like, somebody wrote on it with a Sharpie, RMR 1029. That was the flask number. And this flask had been begun and maintained by Dr. Ivins. Other people did have access to it, but he was the main guy that had started it and had, and maintained it. Now, they started looking into, when they started suspecting him, after the DNA results came back, they started looking into his movements and his history and things like that. One thing they discovered, that not only was he the main guy that had access to this flask and that he was the one that had started it, but they also found out that according to the lab records, because, you kind of sign in and sign out with your, your card or whatever, prior to the letters being sent, Ivins had spent a lot more time in what they called the hot suites, which are kind of the labs that you go into, if you have to work on something that's, biologically volatile or whatever, so it doesn't get out. So he had logged a lot more time into those labs than he ever had previously in the days preceding the mail-outs, which they thought was kind of suspicious. They also found out, when they looked into his background, that the dude had some mental problems. Big time. So at this stage, he becomes the primary suspect. Now, one of the things that they thought was maybe the motive for him doing this was that they thought, well, he actually had 2 patents. Well, he was not the main, he was the co-inventor on 2 patents for anthrax vaccines. And they thought maybe he's releasing, anthrax to like make people buy his vaccines, which kind of seemed like a motivation at first. But then like I've seen a bunch of other scientists that were like, look, I got all kind of patents for vaccines and stuff. You don't get shit money from that. So it's like there's just no, it's like you get a couple pennies here and there. It's just like not enough to like do this elaborate thing. But like I said, I don't know. But he did get, I don't know if he got any money from it, but he did get recognition from it. Like he got some awards and accolades and stuff. Cause like, oh, look at this dude that's like working so hard to like make vaccines for it and stuff. So there's that. Maybe that was enough. I don't really know. Because like every other scientist I saw that had like some patents on vaccines was like, man, we don't get shit money from that. You know what I mean? It's like you had to split it with like 50 bajillion other people. So it's not really that big of a deal. But yeah, so there was that. So according to, another thing that made them kind of like suspicious of him, and this wasn't super clear. Like I kind of read this on a couple of different sites, and they talked about it on the documentary as well. And I think I'm getting this right, but forgive me if I'm not. So what happened was that when they discovered that the, killer anthrax was the Ames strain, there were several labs around the United States that had access to that strain. It wasn't exactly the same, but they all kind of like worked off of it. You know what I mean? So when they discovered it was that, they asked all of those labs to send samples. And all of them did voluntarily, including his lab. But the thing about it was that he sent a sample at first, if I'm understanding this correctly. He sent a sample at first, but apparently he didn't send it right. Like it wasn't, I don't know, in the format that they needed, or he sent it incorrectly somehow. And they were just kind of like, okay, well, we're just going to throw that away. And they asked him to send another one. And he did send another one. Now, for a long time, they thought that the first sample that he'd sent had been thrown away because they were like, well, that wasn't right. He didn't submit it right. You know what I mean? Now, the second sample that he sent didn't match the shit that was in the letters. However, it turned out that the first sample that he'd sent, which they thought had been thrown away, it turned out that somebody at some lab had saved it because they're like, well, nobody told us to discard it, so we just saved it. We just archived it. So later on, when they were like, oh, well, maybe we should take another look at that, and they tested, that one did match. So he had sent the contaminant of the same one that was in the letters. Yeah. He had sent that at first, but he either accidentally or on purpose didn't submit it correctly, and they thought they threw it away, but that matched. But then after he thought about it, he's probably like, oh, well, maybe I should like fake it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of a thing that seems to, and they did kind of ask him about it. It's like, well, why are those two samples that were supposedly from the same lab, like, why are they different? And he couldn't really answer that question. So I thought that was a little bit fishy. But yeah, the first one did match. The second one did not. So it almost kind of seemed like after he thought about it for a minute, he's like, oh, I should probably fake it because they could probably trace this back to me. Like now that this is, this many years later. Because like I said, the shit happened in 2001. This is like 2006, 2007 we're talking about. So it's been like several years. So he's like, well, they could probably catch me, so I should probably like send a fake sample so they don't, trace it back to me. There was that. Yeah, allegedly. That's what I'm saying. So yeah. Now, so in the summer of 2008, the FBI had enough evidence to search his house. And at this stage, they didn't find anything super damning as far as that, but they did find an alarming amount of like guns and ammo, which they thought was a little bit strange. And they also discovered that he had been having a real hard time with his mental health and had actually been committed to an institution for a short time in the summer of 2008 because of like erratic behavior, and he was like making threats to people and stuff. Now, while he was under investigation, and we're going to kind of get into his past because I was kind of interested in him as a person, but what ended up happening to him was that while he was under investigation and shortly after he found out that he was going to be indicted for the terrorist attacks, in late July of 2008, his wife, Diane, found him unconscious at home. I think he was I don't remember if he was in the bathroom or in the bedroom. So he gets taken to the hospital, and a couple days later, he died. What he died of was an overdose of acetaminophen. And he had been observed buying a shit ton of like Tylenol or whatever it was, like he was planning it, you know what I mean? He was 62 years old at the time. Now, they didn't do an autopsy on him because they said it was pretty clear that he had committed suicide. Like, it was pretty obvious. But I don't know. For whatever reason, they didn't do one. So, the cause of death on his autopsy report was listed as liver and kidney failure. He had bought 2 bottles of Tylenol and apparently taken them all. And I think he might have mixed it with alcohol, too. And I think that when he went to, this is what I heard from like one documentary, when his wife took him to the hospital, because she found him like, he was still alive, but he was like unconscious. So she calls 911. I heard the 911 call, and they took him to the hospital, And they were basically like, I think that they asked her if, like, they're like, basically, he's gone or whatever. And she said something like, I don't think he wants to be saved. So I think that she knew that he had done that. You know what I mean? So after he died in 2008, only like a week later, the FBI comes out and they're like, okay, well, we've completed the investigation on the anthrax attacks. And, we have found that, Dr. Ivins was the sole perpetrator. Like, he didn't work with anyone else, anything like that. But a lot of people really didn't buy it, especially, I think, mostly because the FBI had spent, whatever it was, 5 years, like, focusing on Stephen Hatfill, when it was obvious that he probably wasn't the dude that did it. So they're like, well, can we believe this either? You know what I mean? So there was that. Now, the thing about it, so there's a lot of circumstantial evidence, saying that Dr. Ivins was probably responsible. Like I said, it is weird that he was one of the main anthrax experts in the world, and as he even himself said, this strain of anthrax would have been very, very difficult to produce for somebody that didn't know jack shit about it. You'd have to have like really complicated equipment, and you would have to have like really specialized knowledge, and he was really one of the few people in the world that had that. He also had unexplained time in the hot suites. Like, what was he doing, like, before those letters were sent? There were also times when he would check into the lab and they didn't really know his whereabouts for many hours at a time, and they think that it's possible that he could have driven to that mailbox in New Jersey and dropped the stuff off, because I think the mailbox was like a 3-hour drive, something like that. And they're like, there's some time that he's didn't have accounted for that he could have done that. So the thing about it is that he had the opportunity for sure, but they never could have like a smoking gun, because when they searched his house and everything like that, they didn't find anything super, super damning other than all the guns and crazy shit. But it's just kind of like, you know what I mean? But he had mental health issues, obviously, which we're going to get into in a minute. I will note, though, that all of his friends and colleagues, even though they thought he was kind of a weirdo, but you know what I mean? He's a scientist. So they're like, he was kind of geeky and nerdy, and, he was super talkative. Like, he talked a mile a minute and all this other kind of stuff. But it's just kind of like, that was just him being him. They really didn't think he had it in him to do something like this. And to this day, a lot of his friends and colleagues absolutely do not believe that he was the one responsible. But you never know. Now, the thing about it is that, so here's the thing. Once they started looking into his background, the dude had some weird shit about himself. He had a very close friend who was a woman. She was like, I believe she was like a coworker of his, and for whatever reason, he kind of fixated on her and would send her these emails about all of these horrible mental health issues that he was having. Like, she was like, I don't know why he picked me, like, particularly, but he would send me this big long thing, like, about all the shit he was feeling. It was kind of crazy. So because of that, she kind of, once he became a suspect, she was concerned, and so she reported her concerns to the authorities. And so she actually wore a wire and went and had coffee with him or something like that, because they wanted to see if he would say something incriminating. And he said something kind of interesting. He said that he would sometimes, he said, in my right mind, this is what he said, in my right mind, I would never hurt anyone. That's what he said. He didn't say he would never hurt anyone across the board. He said, in my right mind, I would never hurt anyone. But he also pointed out that sometimes he would wake up and his car keys were next to his bed, and he would wonder if he had driven somewhere without remembering it. So he was having, it appeared that he was having blackouts where he was doing shit and not remembering it, or at least that's what he claimed. He also claimed at one point in one of his emails that he felt as though he was like, I don't want to say like necessarily two people, but he felt like he was like outside himself, like watching himself, you know what I mean? Like he was watching himself do things, you know what I mean? Like I said, he had some issues. So let's kind of go back into this dude's history, because I thought this was kind of interesting, and it may kind of give some insight into maybe why he did this or not. I don't know. Because like I said, the thing about it, even though at first what they tried to like put a political motive on it or like a terrorist motive and stuff, I don't think it was that. I just think that he was kind of going with, if indeed it was him, I think he was just kind of going with the zeitgeist of the time to sort of express his own neuroses, if you want to call it that. So he actually originally was from Lebanon, Ohio. Now his parents were Presbyterian, but he later converted to Catholicism, which they thought was kind of interesting in light of some shit, which I'll mention later. Now, according to his older brother, he had a couple of older brothers, but according to this one brother, their mother was, whose name was Mary, was super, super abusive. Not only like physically abusive, but also like emotionally abusive. The story was that I think she had had 2 boys prior to Bruce. Now, Bruce was the youngest. And from what I heard, from what he said, Bruce was like an accident. Like she got pregnant on accident. And during her pregnancy, according to family members, she would apparently try to like bounce down the stairs, like on her butt, like trying to abort him, essentially. And which is bad enough. But then after he was born, she told him that, evidently. I'm not excusing his behavior if indeed he did do this, but I'm just saying this is some fucked up shit. So, yeah, apparently not only did she try to miscarry him while he was in the womb, but when he was like old enough to understand, she was like, yeah, I tried to do that. Like she told him, you know what I mean? Which, you know, that's got to do a number on anybody. So there was that. So, he apparently was like fairly normal. You didn't even hear any of that, did you?
No.
Like that his mom tried to like naturally abort him when he was in the womb by like trying to like jump down the stairs when she was pregnant because he was an accident. And then like later on, like after he was born, like she was like bouncing down the stairs. Well, it might. It depends. Yeah. If he fell like in a particular way, yeah, because people have miscarried like that before.
Damn.
But not only did she do that, but once he was born and was old enough to understand, she told him that.
I wonder why.
That she tried, because she was apparently a horrible person.
Yeah.
At least according to like his brothers, like said that. So, like I said, that would fuck anybody up. Not excusing it, I'm just saying. So, you know, he had a pretty, he was interested in science like pretty early on, and he did a lot of normal shit. He seemed like a normal kid, like in high school. You know, he was in the honor society, he was in all science, stuff like that. Now, he got married, to a nursing student named Diane Batch. They stayed married until he died in 2007, 2008, whatever it was. She was, you know, a housewife, as they tended to do back then. Now, because Dr. Ivins had been raised Presbyterian but converted to Roman Catholicism later on, the authorities, after the Anthrax attacks, they wondered if that in particular was why the senators Daschle and Leahy were targeted specifically, because both of them are Catholics and they are also both pro-choice. And so they thought, well, that's a little strange that those two in particular would be targeted. So they thought maybe there was something there. I don't know if they ever established a link, but they just thought that was kind of interesting. Because, I don't know, because Ivins did have some weird, like, I don't know if they're weird, but like kind of, I don't know, like odd religious views in that regard. So they thought that maybe that was something to do with it. Now, another thing, this is so strange. So apparently when Ivins was in college, he developed an overriding obsession with one particular college sorority, Kappa Kappa Gamma. This happened because he's one of these motherfuckers. He asks one girl out that was a member of that sorority. She turned him down. And then for decades afterward, he seemed fucking obsessed with that sorority. So much so that even much later, when he was when he was in his 50s or 60s and he was brought in by the FBI and questioned about this kind of shit, they asked him about this because they found out about it later on. And he called it, quote unquote, an obsession. That he was obsessed with this sorority. Like, he broke in there at least once and took the cipher book. You know, they have the book in there with the ciphers that like decodes like all of their rituals and all that shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He stole that. He didn't even do like a panty raid. He stole a cipher book.
Yeah, he's trying to hit him where it hurts.
I guess.
Yeah.
So he took that. And he had friends in high school that said it wasn't just the college thing. It's like he was like super resentful toward women, like even going back to high school, like that guy remembered. So there was that too.
So
Now,
his dick was hurting.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah, so he would actually go. He didn't just go in that sorority house like where he was. Like he would go because sorority. I don't know a huge amount about like the Greek system as they call it, but sorority houses they have chapters like at other colleges, right? So he would go around to some of the other colleges and break into those sorority, like the same sorority house at other colleges because he was super obsessed with it.
Bent on vengeance.
I guess, like just because
How
this
dare
one
you
girl
say
was
no to
like,
me.
no, thank you.
That's funny.
Dudes' egos, man. You gotta
fuck,
watch.
man?
You gotta watch. They're very fragile. So
This dude,
they're so fragile that one woman says no thank you, and then he'll send fucking anthrax to people.
Hold on.
That's nice.
Let me fucking clean this shit up. Okay. She said dudes, as if dudes are like this. Dudes are not like
Well,
those are fragile.
dudes like this.
Yeah,
Dudes like
there are guys like that. But
not every dude's the same.
Fuck?
Just like not every woman's the same.
Yeah, dudes like that are fucking fragile. You know what I'm talking about?
That's hilarious to me though.
Yes,
like
one
I mean,
girl
it's not
says
hilarious.
no to
It's
them.
frightening, but
They can't take the rejection. They get fucking butthurt, and then they start fucking having weird fantasies about power dynamics and shit. I understand where you're coming from. I might have been like that when I was like maybe like 13 or 14, but real quick you realize that it's a numbers game.
yeah.
You know what
I think most people are like that when they're preteens or teenagers.
Yeah,
because everything's the end of the world. That's just like what teenagers are
you
like.
go, no.
But once
Don't
you get a little
learn
bit
from your
older,
mistakes, do the shit again, and again, and again, and again, and
maybe it'll work out this time.
Eventually, you just kind of yeah, okay, and then you just kind of but no, just because
I can't imagine one woman rejecting one man.
Yeah, and he's
back in the 60s. And then in the 2000s, the dude is still thinking about it.
Right.
I don't even remember shit that happened in high school, and I'm not even as old as him.
Something about the way dudes develop.
That is
I developed early.
Crazy.
So I never had any problems meeting women or becoming friends with women, or not had any problem with like seeing women as human beings.
Which seems difficult for some types of dudes. I don't know why that is.
Because these dudes are fucking take the shit too seriously. They can't just fucking relax and be normal and talk.
Like I said, it's just a person.
Yeah.
Just a person.
Right. And then the ones who like you, it's going to be easy. The other ones you might have to pursue. But really, in my experience, if you have to pursue them too hard, she's not going to stick. She's just going to try to get some dick and fucking, and then she's going to move on to the next one. She's riding the carousel, But that's just the way it is. The ones that are choosing you, those are the ones you got to focus on. But that's because that's different. But I always found that women that went out of their way to meet you are really kind of the ones that are fucking gonna end up panning out a little bit better. Just my personal experience. Like Jen made sure she met me.
Yeah. I did go out of my way.
Yeah. Yes.
And that should be like very flattering to you because that was not something I usually did.
I knew at the time.
That was not something.
She was married though at the time.
Yeah.
And we just became friends.
Because normally I'm very shy. I don't go up to people. Yeah. Like I'm just like they don't want to talk to me. I'm not going over there.
And me and Jen have been together a long time. Fucking 12 years, 13 years maybe.
Yeah.
And I've told the story a fucking 1,000 times already on the fucking show. We only got married recently.
Last September, actually. Yeah. September of 2023. Yeah.
But we were friends for like a couple years.
Yeah, like a year and a half, 2 years, something like that.
Yeah, we'd hook up, but then we'd date other people. But we'd still hang out. A lot of it had to do with influences of other women. Other women were giving me advice. Other friends are like, you shouldn't fucking go out with her. She just broke up with her husband and she needs to experience freedom, that kind of shit. Don't. I was like, yeah. I think it was good advice. I think that was actually good advice.
It probably was.
Because
like, I was kind of pissed off
yeah.
about it at the time, but I think I did need a little bit of time just
So,
doing my own shit
right.
for a while.
And the kind of guy I was actually getting more gratification out of Jen just being friends and hanging out with her than I was as just like a hookup. I didn't really get much out of hooking up. I was hooking up with all kinds of shit. I got pictures to prove. I hook up with all fucking kind of hotties. Doesn't necessarily mean the experience was all that good. It just doesn't, because there's a lot. Dudes like to say that they fucking judge women just on nothing but physical attributes and personality attributes. It's more than that. It's got to be like a spiritual element, and it's an intangible, you know. And 99% of the damn hookups, there's not that spiritual element there.
Well, yeah,
you don't really vibe with them.
Yeah.
On a certain level.
And like I said, I've done that too. Just like picking up a dude, it's like, you know, but this dude's pretty cool. And
yeah, it might be hot sex, but then there's just something still doesn't really vibe with you. You don't like it.
Yeah, then like the next day, you're just kind of like, meh.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, she talks shit, or she's kind of dumb, or you know what I mean, like, man, she gets annoying, you know, or she's already making unrealistic demands. I'm gonna get rid of this bitch. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of weird shit.
There's that.
When it's right, it just clicks. And it doesn't have to be sexual at first or romantic. It could be a lot more different dimensions to it. Well, these dudes that are like, getting back to on the subject, these dudes right here, they don't have a way with women. They don't have an understanding of women or relationships. They don't, and the reason why they don't is because they don't know themselves. And once they don't know themselves, how can they know anybody else?
Well, you kind of got to work on yourself first before you really get up in anyone else's shit.
Right. And you never want to have the mentality of scarcity. No. The mentality of plenty. There are many, 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 many women. Just like there are many, 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 many men. There's lots of people. If something fucks up with one, it's not over. Let that one go. You got to try again.
I mean, that's
different one.
We kind of talked about that on the whole Twin Flames universe show, because I think that cult, and it is a cult, kind of relies on people being like, oh, this is the one. Like the people, and it's a romantic idea, and I understand why people like it, and I probably had that when I was a teenager, but it's like, that is a very toxic idea to get in your head. I'm not saying that like, oh, every person is as good as every other person, but I'm just saying that there's no one be all end all, and if you fuck that up, you're lonely forever. That is a very, very bad mindset to get into.
There's a certain amount of people that you can vibe with.
Sure.
If you have a relationship with them long term, they'll be good, but each one of them will be slightly different.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're wrong or anything like that. Jen was dating guys that had that shit gone long term, she would have had a long term relationship with them that would have been good. It wouldn't have been like ours. It would have been a good one.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It applies to the men too.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I was kind of like...
There's one guy I can think of that fucking, I know, I was there, that would have worked out, had it worked out.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
That probably would have.
But that dude actually was not ready.
No. Yeah. Well, one, he was significantly younger than me, which kind of bothered me a little bit. It didn't seem to bother me.
Wouldn't have mattered now had you stuck with him, though.
No.
Because
but
he's been older.
He was kind of coming out of... He had just gotten divorced, too.
Yeah.
And he was even... At that time, was even less experienced than me.
Yeah.
But we had a good time.
Yeah.
We had a good time.
Yeah. Now,
I still think of him fondly.
Jen's body. Listen to her.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's a
good dude.
He's a good dude.
Yeah, Tom met him.
I liked him.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Fucking Jen has very low body count, especially compared to me. Which is that's something. And my advice is you kind of want to go with a woman that's on a little lower end of a body count, because it's an indicator that they commit. That they're not floating from dude to dude just to make paychecks to get to the next month.
Yeah, that was
problematic.
Really something that never occurred to me.
Right. But they have women that are like that. So you want to stay with them. It's not, body count isn't so critical in men if you're a woman. Listen to me. It's not that critical, because sex for a man is not as intimate, it's not as invasive as it is for a woman. It can mean a lot of different things for a man. in general, it's kind of more of a conquest and entertainment. First, it can mean more later.
If you know like after you get to know the person.
Yeah, right. Women control the sex. They decide who's going to have sex and who isn't. Men kind of control who's going to have a relationship. Because the guy can get the sex, but then he leaves. He's like, nah, I don't want to. So as a man, you have to understand that's your power. Is you have the power to stay. Whether or not she wants you to stay or not. Because a lot of women,
oh my God,
they just want to
out of my face.
Like, get the fuck out of here. But,
why are you still here?
Yeah.
Now I have to clean up after you.
Right. The man's special ability is that he can stay. That's the only thing you have to offer. Because women can get sex anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it might not be
If
great.
they want
It
to,
probably won't be great.
Yeah, because they don't have the
honestly.
same motives as guys. They're not as sexually motivated. Like, I'm going to go have sex with all these different dudes.
Yeah.
And put them on put notches on the belt.
And very real.
Yeah,
like,
I got women
I
like
have
that, but
met
it's rare.
some women like it, but it's very, very unusual.
They usually tend to be young.
Because there's a lot. I mean, we have a lot more to lose, like
Right.
I said. So we're a lot more cautious in that regard. So
Yeah.
it's like you can't just like go hit whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and usually those women tend
Even
to
though
be,
you might want to, but I don't want to. But
Usually those women tend to be young. The ones that actually act on it.
not saying I don't like sex, because I do.
Yeah.
You know how that goes. But
Yeah.
it's just kind of like I'm not into like sex with like a bunch of random ass people.
Right.
Because I'm like, I don't know you, so it's
Yeah.
not quite the same experience.
Yeah, males of all species, they tend to like variety, but they'll make they'll make modifications and keep themselves contained if it's to nurture a relationship with somebody they find is special. You know what I'm talking about? Like if you weren't special, I'd be hitting. Yeah, because that's kind of the default setting for men.
Well, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Why do you think we're so like distrustful?
Yeah. Well, they should be.
Yeah,
Women
well,
should be.
That's why you shouldn't yell at me about it.
I don't. Yeah, but it's not. It's not just.
I don't think you would do anything
No.
that I know of.
It's not
but-
just humans. It's not just human males. It's males of all
Well, yeah,
animal species.
dude. I read a lot about evolutionary
Yeah.
biology. I know all that shit.
Yeah.
Why do you think I'm so distrustful of men in general?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, man, it doesn't even matter what species they are.
No,
There are dicks in every species.
No, because our ancestors were spreading seed.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that.
Right.
Why do you think I don't trust nobody?
You can trust me.
I know how shit goes.
You can trust me.
I know. I trust you 99.9%, which is more than I ever trusted anybody ever. So don't fuck me over. I'm just saying.
Oh,
Just saying. Because I do
I've
trust
done
you.
nothing but deliver.
That's true.
I've done nothing but deliver.
As far as I know, I don't think you're doing anything
No,
behind
no,
my back. I don't
no.
think you are. DVD Dragon said, "You see, the love of Jenny is much different than that of a square."
That's right. You see, a pimp's love is very different from that of a square. If y'all haven't seen fucking Idiocracy, go see Idiocracy.
Oh my God.
It's a masterpiece. Yeah.
DVD Dragon also says, "Life is just a carousel of dick."
For some girls.
Sometimes it seems
girls.
well, not for me. It doesn't seem like that, but I mean, it's a carousel.
Late
well,
teens turn
to
on
me,
twice.
it's not a carousel of dick. It's one dick, but it's a good dick.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's fine.
That's a lot of the teenage girls in early 20s. They're like
I didn't
that.
even do that at my.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I kind of had a different situation because I wasn't super slutty when I was in my teenage years, and then I got married at 22, and I never cheated on the dude, and I was married for 14 years.
Yeah.
And then I got divorced. I was about 37, 38. Then I
Yeah.
kind of went buck wild for like a year and a half. But even then, like I didn't go too crazy.
Yeah,
because I'm just not that kind of person.
Her
It's
body
like it was.
count's less than 10, maybe less than 15.
It's maybe 8.
Yeah.
I think 8
Yeah.
is what it is.
And she deserved that shit, man. I was there. She deserved to go fucking run wild for a little while.
Yeah, and like I said, even then I didn't run that wild.
No.
Not comparatively.
No, it was real. I was there.
It was pretty
See,
low.
here's the thing,
It
people
was
are like-
pretty
people are
low
like,
key
you did-
wild. It
I
was
was
pretty low
there.
key wild.
I was there at the club. I saw the guys.
Yeah.
I was fucking, I talked to them, fucking everything outside.
It was only a handful,
Yeah.
seriously. And like I said, that was all kind of like in that one time because I was
Yeah.
married a long time. I married
Yeah.
young, and I didn't cheat on that dude that whole time.
Yeah.
So because I don't do that.
And then,
I just don't.
and
do
then
that.
me and Jen finally said, "Well, I guess we're a couple then." And then everybody was like, "Well,
We didn't even talk about it.
Yeah,
we didn't even talk about it.
It just happened."
I remembered very distinctly.
Yeah.
We were at venue 13.
Yeah.
We were outside on the patio. We were talking to somebody about something. And you, in the course of the conversation, you referred to me
As it my girlfriend?
as your girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I looked at you like, and then after the person left, I was like, so what was that about? You're like, I don't know. I was like, so is this a thing now? Or, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
That was how that happened.
Yeah, well, it happened naturally.
I guess so.
Yeah, I was thinking of you as my girlfriend.
Because you had never, like, referred to me like that before?
But, it's funny, I'm very flexible. I'm not like, people look at me and they might want to fucking judge me and trying to say like what kind of guy I am or anything. Even during that time when I consider you my girlfriend, you could have dated other guys for a little while.
And you'd have been like, okay.
But it was just, you were my girlfriend at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were together, like, all the time.
Yeah, we were together all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. We fucking lived together almost.
I was either staying at his house or he was staying at my apartment.
Yeah.
Pretty much all the time.
We were definitely best friends.
Yeah. And we only hooked up every now and then.
Every now and then we'd throw down.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like the central thing of the relationship.
Yeah, we were all just like hanging out.
We were fucking having good with the club and talking about fucking food and clothes and shit.
Danny says, "What's Tom's body count number?" Do you even remember?
No.
He doesn't remember.
It's triple digits.
It's got to be in the hundreds.
Triple digits, yeah.
I mean, just from what I know about you. Well,
I got photographs for a lot of it. Yeah, because
it's got to be at least.
Leaving high school, I was
100.
at least 30.
Right, and then
just before I graduated.
And then, like I said,
and it was on 2 continents. Well, no, not 2 continents. It was both in America and in Brazil. So I grew up in Brazil with Brazilian girls, and they were very advanced. You know what I mean?
So you hit a lot of those, and then when you were in the army, you were going to the brothels in Korea, and that was like a different.
That really didn't add up to that many though.
Yeah, because you didn't get leave that often.
Only got out once every month, and I was only there 12 months, and I may have averaged maybe 2 a month.
Right.
But
still, I mean, you're easily like.
But the thing is, if I was a girl, I wouldn't be counting the hookers. But I'm a man. I'm gonna count everything. I count if
Why wouldn't girls count hookers?
A girl probably wouldn't count it. They would go, "Oh, that doesn't count." "Oh, I didn't like him, so that don't count." "Oh, I paid for that one. I wouldn't count." I think a girl probably wouldn't count that if
I
she
count
did that.
I count all that shit.
So, and
if it's sex, it counts.
Yeah.
I don't care if you paid for it or not.
Yeah, and here's the thing. No, I really appreciated my time in Korea with their little tea house girls, and I liked them. They're nice. They were just, I was in my army and they were in their army. I was serving my country. They were serving their country, trying to get all the money out of us and get it in the Korean economy. And they were, I respected them. Other Koreans probably didn't respect them, but it was it was legal there, but not, it was like geisha type entertainers. I guess that's more of a classy way to put it, but...
Hey, they're working like anybody else. Like I said, I'm a big advocate of not shitting on sex workers.
Yeah.
Because it is a hard job. I would not do it. Unless I was super fucking desperate.
Yeah.
I'll do porn video and live stream and stuff like that. But I'm not like fucking random dudes for money. Fuck that.
Solo scenes and doing scenes with me.
Yeah. Which, like I said, we would be doing that anyway. So that's not like weird. But, and honestly, anybody that can do escorting and stuff like that and make money at it, I kind of admire that because I would not.
Like a secret agent.
I would not do that.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
wouldn't want my daughter to do it, but
it's not me. It's not my thing.
If that's for you, then that's for you. It's not for everybody.
I would not be good at it because I'm not good at faking.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're so awesome! Like some fucking 60-year-old fat dude comes up to me and it's just kind of like, ooh, and I have to like pretend to be into that. I'm not
girlfriend
good.
Experience.
I'm not good at that. And I'll admit, I know my weaknesses. I'm not good at that. It's fine if I don't have to see the person. If it's live stream and it's just kind of like I can't see you, you're just like a name on the screen.
Actually, when they turned the camera on, we have seen them. They're normal guys.
Well, all of the dudes that turn the cameras on,
they all look good.
Have been young and pretty buff.
Yeah, they're fit. Yeah.
So I kind of feel like we've never had an experience where we were live streaming and like somebody turned on and it was like some 80-year-old weirdo.
Yeah.
Never.
No fat.
It was always like a dude in their 20s or 30s in
usually
good shape.
Usually
in good
jacked.
shape.
Yeah. Me and Jen, in the video scene, were attracted mostly bisexual, British guys who worked out, a couple American guys
Who are my favorite.
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
client.
nice guys.
Because they're all super polite.
Yeah, weren't creepy at all.
Not
They just wanted to
creepy,
play. They just wanted to play games across the fucking.
They just want to have like a virtual threesome.
Yeah, that's all it was. Yeah.
It wasn't weird at all.
Yeah,
and they were super nice.
It wasn't even weird for me, and I'm straight, but I know what he's after, so I'm just putting on a show for him, and fucking, showing Jen and getting him to show off, and fucking, because you want to make him the show too. If he's got the camera on,
I mean, if they turn the camera on, then there is.
Then he wants to be part of the show too. So.
But it's weird. I don't think I've ever. Everybody that turned their camera on was like a reasonably attractive person.
Yeah. If they're not attractive, they're not gonna turn the camera on.
Unless they are some kind of weirdo that's just kind of like, hey, they get off on making everybody look at their ugly ass. But we haven't had anybody. Yeah. I know there's people out there like that, but we never had anybody like that. Oscar says, don't lie about that body count, y'all. Seriously, I'm not lying about mine. I think it's 8. And I'm 51. But like I said, I was married for a long time in there. I was married I got married at 22 in 1995. And we divorced in 2009? 2010. 2009 or 2010. I can't really remember. But yeah, we were married a long time, like 14 years or something like that. And like I said, I never cheated on that dude. Because I don't do that. If I commit to you, I commit to you. I don't fuck around. I don't know. I don't do that. I don't want it done to me, so I don't do it to other people. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. I just wouldn't do that. DVD Dragon said, you couldn't buy anything with paycheck from a dick. Probably not. Dick is not worth anything. Well, I wouldn't say that necessarily. But I don't know. It's just kind of out there. Tammy says that's what you're going to see when I show up, an 80-year-old weirdo. I would love it, Tammy. I would love it if you would show up and turn the video on. Like,
turn the video on?
Tammy.
Damn it, yeah.
She said that's what you're going to see, an 80-year-old weirdo.
I've seen Tammy's photos. Tammy's a normal kind of... She's a good-looking, middle-aged chick. You want more of that?
Yeah.
She's our age.
Let me have one more.
All right.
That was what? I've only had like 2, right?
This is going to be drink 3.
Okay.
I'm going to make it weak, though.
I mean, I started early. I started at like 6:30. Because I was getting, before like an hour before the show started, I was like, man, I think I'm going to just make a drink and pregame a little bit. I've been watching Night Gallery because I want to do, on my Scare Salon channel, which if you haven't subscribed to that, go over and subscribe to Scare Salon. I haven't put a video up on there for a long time. So I was like, holy shit, I really need to do that. So I was like, I really need to get back into my Night Gallery videos because I bought the fucking whole series on DVD, right? So I'm still working my way through season 2. So I got like halfway through season. Like I did episode 7, episode 8, and then I just started writing about episode 9. So I'm kind of hoping that I'm going to try and watch them like in bits and like write about it as I go and then do a video about it. So hopefully it'll be up by either this weekend or by Tuesday. Because I really want to put something up on there. But I really like Night Gallery, and I know a lot of people like those. So I'll do Night Gallery, and I'm still doing Thriller, because I have a million of those episodes left, too. Murder Hornet said this is like a Friday show. I know. Well, I mean, we're almost to the end. So we just like started talking about Bruce Ivins and his weird obsession with sororities, and that kind of got us off on a whole thing. So I'm not really sure. Okay, so the dude... So not only was he like obsessed with this very particular sorority, so much so that he's driving to other colleges where this sorority has a chapter and is also breaking into that shit, which I don't understand that, but okay, whatever. But there was another woman, Nancy Hagewood, who's a doctor now, but she was like, I guess they were both at the University of North Carolina together, and when he was postdoctoral at that point, and he kind of became obsessed with her at that time, and she accused him of stalking her and stealing her notebooks that had like all of her work in it, which okay, and like fucking up her apartment and shit like that. So this dude, I'm not saying this makes him a biological terrorist, because these are two different things, but it is weird that he has this kind of history and this kind of like long-running obsession with these women, and he's like breaking into their... He's not raping them or nothing like that, as far as I know, but he's just like breaking into like stealing stuff. And then he's like obsessed with them, and he's like sending them messages and like stalking them and stuff. That just seems a little weird, is all I'm saying. You know. He later admitted, and he admitted this himself in his own words, to the FBI after he was a suspect and they started questioning him about shit. He said that something he would do a lot was that he would put a pistol in his waistband. He would go to like a really shitty part of town at night and deliberately walk through dudes, like groups of young men, hoping that somebody would do something, I guess, so he could shoot them. So he's not like the most mentally stable person ever, is what I'm saying. Now, because they figured out that the anthrax letters had been sent from this particular, post box in Princeton, New Jersey. Now, this particular box, it so happened, was like across the street from a place where that sorority, Kappa Kappa Gamma, kept a bunch of their stuff. Like it was a storage facility for that sorority. So they thought that was a little suspicious. But when they kind of looked into that, they couldn't find any physical evidence that tied him to that, because nobody ever saw him dropping the shit into that mailbox, for example. There were no, for another example, like there were no receipts, like from a gas station in the area, perhaps, that would have tied him to that area. They could never place him in that area, which is one of the things that made people maybe doubt that it was him. They did say that he'd had ample time to drive back and forth from that mailbox, because it was about 3 hours away. But no one ever spotted him at that particular mailbox. They just thought it was weird that that mailbox was right across the street from like a Kappa Kappa Gamma like storage place, and he happened to have an obsession with that sorority. Not saying that makes him guilty, I'm just saying that's a little suspicious. So again, that's a little kind of like more circumstantial evidence. Now, in 2008, the FBI released a bunch of emails which Dr. Ivins had written. And as I mentioned, a lot of these were addressed to this co-worker / friend of his, who he had, for whatever reason, decided that he was just going to, kind of pour all of his shit onto. And he went a lot into his anxiety, his depression, his paranoia in these. Now, he had seen a therapist for this. He was on medication for this. And the thing about it was that he was diagnosed with, some psychiatrists who looked at it thought that he maybe had some type of psychosis. But they also couldn't rule out the possibility that he was maybe faking for whatever reason. Now, they also did this kind of like a panel of, behavioral experts and stuff like that, and to kind of look into his mental health background. One thing they did determine that that they thought was interesting was that they believed that the Army had not done sufficient due diligence in assessing his mental state before allowing him to work with Anthrax. You know what I mean? So they're like, well,
what
maybe
could they do?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. They're just saying that in hindsight, probably not a great idea to let him work with like a bioweapon like
It's
that.
like when I was in the fucking recon platoon, 101st, was in the 1st 327. All our snipers had to undergo like a psychological evaluation before they fucking went through sniper school. The sniper school candidates before they sent them. Because I worked with snipers, but I was in one of the scout squads. The snipers were 4th squad. They were like our support. They have to give them a certain secret clearance also too before they can actually send them to sniper school. But if you actually look at what they're, man, it is so fucking rudimentary. It's more like legal paperwork that they have to go through just to say, okay, we did our shit. Okay, go to the school. There's nothing to that.
Yeah, I don't think they looked too deep.
'Cause they can't-
Well, they clearly did not in this
They
case.
can't predict who's going to be a psycho when you're fucking have an entire army of psychos that you're training to be killers. The whole fucking army's like
Fair.
that.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? What are you talking about? That's why they're there.
That's
You
what I
know?
mean. I kind of feel like I don't like to, because we talk about a lot of true crime cases and we're just like, hey, this person that later turned out to be a serial killer, like when they were a kid, they did X, Y, Z, and we like to think, oh, why didn't somebody stop them back then? But it's just like, if you went back in a time machine and you saw that shit happen, I kind of feel like it would be people would be like, wow, that was fucked up. But I don't think they would, put the same importance on it that
They got other kids doing the same thing, nothing happens to them.
right, and then nothing happens. So it's just kind of like you can't, like you said, it's really hard to predict people's future behavior. Like a lot of kids do fucked up shit, and you can't always predict. Oh, that person's gonna be a serial killer. You know what I mean? So
Who could have predicted Lee Harvey Oswald?
that's what I mean. You can't really unless it's super egregious.
Yeah.
Unless it's super egregious.
And I'm not convinced Oswald wasn't working for somebody. He seemed he was involved in a lot of CIA stuff, like the Free Cuba movement. Do I think he acted alone? No. So just having somebody do a quick mental evaluation in some military unit somewhere, given by
It's
some
probably
entity,
not,
You're
yeah.
never gonna fucking find out if that. Dude
I mean,
was Lee
you'd
Harvey
like
Oswald.
to think that they
Yeah.
were a little bit more stringent when someone was going to be working with bioweapons, but apparently not.
It's hard to pick through them.
Well, and like I said, everyone's humans. Humans are just doing their jobs. Most people, when they go to their jobs, they're just kind of bullshit their way through and get a paycheck. You know what I mean? I get that.
And
So-
he only has to act right for that interview. That's
Right.
it. And then he's got the fucking intellectual skills to do what he's being asked to do, which is make bioweapons. All right. It's probably hard to find a dude who's got the skills to make bioweapons. They're not going to eliminate him. They're going to say, well,
They're like,
can
well, this
make
dude's really good at it.
We don't really quite
but he's
trust
also kind of crazy.
Yeah, but we also don't quite trust you, so we're going to have to fucking throw you out of the batch when you're no more or less crazy than any other motherfuckers making bioweapons.
I mean, you kind of have to be sort of crazy to want
Yeah,
to
and
buy
you
weapons
only
in the
have to
first
fucking
place.
act real sane for the fucking interview,
True.
which probably anybody could do that.
Well,
Bundy could have done it.
unless you were super crazy.
Ted
but yeah, well,
Ted
yeah.
Bundy could get through any of that
Well,
shit.
why do you think that serial killers get
Yeah.
away with shit for such a long time?
Yeah.
Because for short periods of time, they're able to act like a fucking normal person,
They know what normal people are looking for. They're not stupid.
which is more than I can do. I can't
Yeah.
act like a normal person, but I'm not a serial killer again
just-
either.
Respond like a normie.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know what normies respond like. I have no idea.
serial killers do.
Right, but like I said, I'm not
Yeah.
a serial killer, so I got that going for me. Danny said Tom's got a Hyman Trophy case.
No, I don't. Only had
Dudes
one.
are impressed though, right?
Only had one virgin, and that was after I got out of the army when I was like 20 something, and she was 20 something. Her name was Alexandria. That's all I'm gonna say. Up in Boston, nice girl.
Ooh, I never heard this story.
I tell you that.
You can tell me that later.
Yeah,
Don't say it on the show because
No.
somebody might dox her.
yeah,
Not, I mean that's unlikely, but I'm just saying.
yeah. She's got a bunch of kids now.
We talk about a lot of people on the show, and I'm always
Yeah.
just kind of like, man, should we do that?
Yeah.
Because people could find, because all they have to do is look at our friends list. They know who we're talking
Yeah,
about.
she was in her 20s and she just wanted to get it over with. So you want to get it over with? Huh? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I knew
we
some
can
people like
We can
that.
get it over with then.
Yeah, once you get to that age, you're just like, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. It's just kind of like, I really should have
Yeah.
done this by now.
Yeah. And she had mental things about it. You know what I mean?
Oh, you're going to have to tell me this story.
Yeah,
later.
and I was like, it's not a big deal.
Tell me this
It's
story
not a
later.
big deal. I just popped it and jumped off of her. She's like, ow, that shit hurt. And I
It
said-
does
and
kind of
I said-
hurt.
and, you know,
the person.
fucking, and I said, yeah, just heal up. We'll do it again later. And fucking.
It's not so fun the first time. Not for girls, it's
No,
not.
no. I just popped it for her.
It's kind of painful, and it's just but
Yeah.
after that, it's fun. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah. It took
first
her a while.
time is
then
not.
she got into it, but it took weeks.
Now
A
it's
couple later, heal up. So.
that's not always the case though, because I do know some girls who were like, oh my first time was so awesome, but it's just kind of mine was not great, but it wasn't sucky.
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of fun, but it was also kind of shitty. You know what I mean? So, it was very painful.
I told her, I said, you're not going to like it.
Yeah, I mean, generally,
said,
it's not, like I said, it's not.
And I said, look, we'll just fucking get this shit over. She says, yeah, get it
just get it over with, yeah.
And then fucking, it's man, I can't believe I'm fucking telling this story.
Well, I told you could tell it to me later, but you just kept on blabbing.
Yeah. I want it.
Like you do.
I just fucking did it and jumped and fucking... She ran off the fucking bathroom and shit. And she's like, I can't believe I did it. It says, yeah, you did it. But it says, that's not what sex is, though.
It was like, it'll be much better later.
Yeah, just yell it. Okay. And then, like, the next week, she wasn't really into it. But then, like, a couple weeks later, she goes, oh, I understand this now.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's much better later.
Yeah.
Like, the first time, you're just kind of like, what the fuck is going on?
She didn't get it.
This is not fun.
Right.
You know what I mean?
She could do everything else, though. She'd been, oral and playing around and shit, but she never did that.
Right. DVD Dragon says Tom launched Operation Hyman Spear. I think people are too, like, obsessed with virginity. It seems like a weird thing, but...
I was uncomfortable around it. I was used to fucking women that had some miles on them.
Right.
They were ready to fucking party.
People get too... They put too much importance on it.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, especially for girls, like, the first time, it's, like, probably not...
It was like
probably not going to be a fun time.
Yeah, it was like a mental block.
Just get it over with.
She felt very inadequate.
It'll be fun later.
She actually felt inadequate. Like she was.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
Because everybody else was ahead of her.
Yeah, everybody else had already done it.
Yeah, and she was cute. She was very cute, but she was scared of it.
Right. Well, like I said, it's I kind of had the same situation because I was a little bit older than average, and yeah, you do get that. You feel kind of like a loser because it's like, oh, everyone's like, most of my friends had done it, and and it's just kind of like, like I said, the first time was kind of fun, but also kind of sucky. Yeah. You know what I mean? It got much better later. It gets much better later, like when you know what you like and you know how to do shit. You know what I mean? First time is like not fun. But yeah, so where were we? Okay, so this dude, so like I said, they didn't really go into his background, but like you said, that's not all that unusual. Now, the thing about it was that I think a lot of the psychiatrists that examined him, like later on, thought, yeah, he does kind of fit the profile of somebody that would be the anthrax killer. You know what I mean? Now, it did come out later that one of his counselors, who was a social worker, her name was Jean Dooley. Now, she actually ended up having to file a protective order against him. She claimed that he had stalked her and threatened to kill her. And had done so for quite a long time. Now, she said that she had treated him for 6 months, and at the end of that time, she later told authorities that he was kind of losing his shit and said that he was going to, quote, go out in a blaze of glory. So there was that.
Xander says, Tom will say you're not going to tell the story, then he goes and tells the whole story. I didn't tell the whole fucking story.
You're going to tell me that story later.
It's called the tease, though. I'm teasing.
You're going to tell me that story later.
I'll tell you the story. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you later.
You'd like that story. It was funny.
Would I?
Yeah.
We'll see.
Why wouldn't you?
I don't know. I'm just saying.
That was a long time ago.
But see, that's what I mean. It's like...
That was like 96.
It's hilarious because Tom would be like, I'm not going to tell you that, and then he'll tell you anyway. He'll tell you anyway. Another thing he does, too, is that he'll, like, ask me a question. And then before I can answer it, he'll just, like, keep talking. Like, he tries to, like he's going to answer for me, or he's giving me all these options or something. I'm like, can I answer? Or, yeah, he'll just, like, keep on talking. But he does that all the time. So I'm kind of used to it. I've known him forever. But, yeah, so I'm going to hear that story, like, later on. I'm going to hear that story later on. Because I'm always kind of interested in this. They kind of... I know this is fucked up. I'm a girl. I know this is fucked up, but they make me kind of mad, even though he didn't know me back then, obviously, but I'm just kind of like, they made me kind of mad, but I kind of want to hear about him anyway, even though it kind of makes me mad. I don't know. I know that's stupid. I don't know. I'm admitting it. But yeah, so this woman, who was his counselor, said that he threatened to kill her, all this other kind of stuff. Now, she said she reported this information to the FBI, I'm assuming, like, when he first became a suspect for this shit, and she even forwarded them phone messages that he left her where he was, like, yelling at her. It's like, you did this, and like blaming her for like all of the shit that was happening. Even though it was his craziness clearly that got him in trouble. Now, the thing about it, though, was that because Jean Dooley was, she had a checkered past, let's call it that. When she was younger, she had been, according to her own admission, like in a biker gang, and she'd been like on a bunch of drugs and stuff like that. She kind of got her shit together later and became a counselor or whatever, but because she had that in her past and Ivins did not have a criminal history, I feel like they didn't really listen to her at first. So there was that. I kind of feel like until there was more shit about him, like more women coming forward and saying, yeah, he stalked me too, like they didn't really listen to her, because she did try to warn the FBI prior to that. So she told them, one of the things she told the FBI was that according to his sessions with her, that Ivins had what she called, and this is a quote, a detailed homicidal plan to kill his coworkers. And he had developed this after, figuring out that he was going to be tried on capital murder charges, like for the thing. So because of this, a lot of people have determined, well, maybe he didn't even do the anthrax attacks. But because he got blamed for it, he lost his shit because he already had like mental health issues up to this point. I'm not really sure where I fall on that. Like, he clearly did have mental health issues going back to high school and perhaps prior. He was horribly abused as a child, both physically and mentally. It does seem like he had some problems later on with obsessive behavior, stalking, things like that. Now, was it enough to have made him essentially take revenge on society, maybe by doing an anthrax attack, like pretending it was a terrorist attack? Or did he just go nuts after he got accused of it and then he just like lost his mind? Either of those two scenarios are believable to me, so I'm not really sure where I stand on it, but I am kind of leaning more toward he probably did it because of the other circumstantial evidence, as in that particular strain of anthrax coming from that particular flask, which he was kind of in charge of. Yes, other people had access to it, but he was the guy that was in charge of it. He was the one that had started it. He was the one that, knew where it was at all times. It was in his possession, things like that. And there were other things that made me kind of think that maybe he did it, but I don't know. I mean, he did seem like he had some issues, as I said. Now, the thing about it was that, so they gave him, I don't know, I guess they gave him a lie detector test, and at first I think he passed it. You know what I mean? I think they gave kind of everybody like lie detector tests, and I think he kind of passed it, but I'm not really sure if that is here or not, nor there. But there's kind of like the people that think that maybe he didn't do it. They're like, well, this particular strain of anthrax that came out in the letters was probably too complicated, too sophisticated for one single person to have done. So, and as I said, a lot of the people that knew him, that were friends of his, that were colleagues of his, that worked alongside him for a long time, absolutely, and to this day, as far as I know, still refuse to believe that he could have done that. But I don't know. The shit about it is, though, that stuff that he said voluntarily to the FBI and to his friend, like when she was wearing a wire, he seemed to have some kind of thing where he was like dissociating. It almost seemed like he seemed aware of it, but so it's possible that he could have been doing shit in this other iteration of himself that he maybe wouldn't have done. Because I found it instructive that he very specifically said to her, because she was asking him, like, look, Bruce, did you do this? And he kind of paused for a long time, and then he said, in my right mind, I wouldn't hurt anybody. And I thought that was kind of interesting that he made that distinction, because he did seem to know that he maybe allegedly was doing stuff without his conscious knowledge. Like he was blacking out and doing stuff.
Well, if that's true, then he probably did it.
That's what I'm saying. So that's
true.
kind of made me like, because it's like, I'm like I said, I'm not exonerating him. I'm just saying that if he did it, he had mental issues so severe that maybe he was doing it without his conscious knowledge. Because he's like, I would wake up sometimes and my car keys would be like right there on my nightstand, and I'd be like, oh shit, did I drive somewhere and do something and I don't remember it? You know what I mean? And it could be that he was just making that up.
I think he made that up.
But maybe not.
He may have just had darker impulses.
And maybe he was
a good person, but he'd have these. We watched this thing last night where the damn serial rapist.
Oh my god!
Actually,
American Nightmare. Watch that,
great,
you guys.
great,
It's crazy.
great.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
He's actually calling the cops to try to back up the girl's story that no, I did rape her. Don't, because they were going to send her to jail for what he did. This rapist,
it's a whole thing.
This rapist is actually having like protective feelings for his.
This is one of the weirdest fucking things.
Because. Yeah, I can understand what he's doing as a man.
Yeah, I understand it too, but it's still pretty weird.
He was living a fantasy. He had
still
this
pretty weird.
fetish, rape fantasy. But in his mind, he loved those girls. He cared about them. He didn't want to see them get in trouble for what he did to them. And one girl talked her way out of getting raped. He found out she'd been raped before, and he's like, oh, man, somebody raped you? Oh, man. Okay, well, then this is how you protect yourself. Then he goes on to teach her how to protect yourself from rapists.
Maybe you should get a dog.
Yeah, you should get. And then he leaves. Because he doesn't see himself as a rapist. He thinks he's Don Juan.
That's what Xander is saying. He's compartmentalizing it. And I think that a lot of people that do this kind of shit... Because when we were watching this last night, I was like, this is the craziest fucking shit.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. From an intellectual standpoint, I've read enough about rapists and murders and stuff. Like, I don't feel that. Like, I can't empathize because I don't feel that way myself. But intellectually, I can understand how they came to that conclusion. Yeah. Let's put it that way. So this dude, the way he's acting is like super strange, and just like the shit that he was like, I kind of feel like he had this whole fantasy scenario. But I told Tom, I was just kind of like, I feel like a lot of dudes that rape women, not so much you're breaking into your house and raping or jumping out of the bushes, but kind of more date rape kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know what the percentage is, but I think a large percentage of those dudes do not think of themselves as rapists.
They see themselves more as an opportunist, I think, and they care about those women. They like them. So it's not rape. That's in their mind.
Which is kind of disturbing from a women's point of view, but yeah.
That particular rapist who we were talking about before, I was putting myself in his shoes and his actions, and I go, oh, I know what he's doing. Yeah. He was raping those women, but he loved them. He cared about them. You know what I mean? And he didn't want to see anything bad happen to him. He wasn't beating them up or anything.
Not that made it any better. I'm just saying.
He's got this fantasy that he's like Don Juan, and that what he's doing is a good thing in a certain way. He's alleviating the stress off the woman in his mind. She doesn't have to choose. You know what I mean? Because she doesn't want to choose. It makes her more innocent in his mind. So he cherishes her more.
Yeah.
Because she didn't choose to have sex.
Yeah.
So she's more almost like virginal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's against
well, like
her
you
will.
said, that might be why.
Innocent.
Because they found out later.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen American Nightmare, please watch it. It's a crazy fucking story.
Yeah.
But if that's why when they found out later, the same dude had broken into a woman's apartment.
Yeah.
And tied her up and put a like blindfold thing, or it wasn't even blindfold. It was like a swim goggles with blacked out tape on them. And it was like, I'm sorry to inform you, but I'm gonna have to rape you. And I'm just like, oh goody.
Yeah.
But then after she started like freaking out and saying that she'd been raped before, he didn't do it.
Yeah. He says, well, I can't bring myself to do it then. That's what he said.
And like you said, it might have been a thing where he thought like, oh, she was sullied. But also because, like you said, he might have been perceiving it as, like, innocent.
Yeah, the innocence was gone.
Right. And so he couldn't really get into it anymore.
Right. And he wanted her to be innocent and that it's happening against her will. All right. He's going to be nice to her during this. but it's still against her will, which makes her innocent. So she cannot be like, it's not sinful. You know what I mean?
Which seems like a very, very
it's a weird,
specific
twisted
fetish.
way. Yeah, a very twisted way.
This dude seemed to have a very, very specific fetish.
And so it's not done in his mind out of any kind of hatred. He sees this as love in a certain way. He loves them. That's some weird shit, man.
Like I said.
But when the cops started to lock one of the victims up for making up the story, no, he said, no, I did do it. He's sending them all kind of evidence. He says, don't lock her up. I did it. Yeah, pictures and shit. He's coming to her defense. Why would he come to her defense? Right. He could let her go down for the crime. It's because he cared about her.
He didn't want her to go to jail.
Because
they thought she was making it up because the story was so fucking crazy.
He had an emotional connection to her purity and her innocence.
Gotta pee.
Yeah, weird.
It was very weird.
It's a weird way.
It was super fast.
A weird way.
I did not expect.
But it's just kind of like a weird mixture of fucking the diabolic and the fucking kind of weird mixture of fucking diabolical and fucking human. You know what I mean? He was kind of a very human guy. He cared about the victims, which is unusual because a lot of times they'll kind of escalate. And he started off as a peeping Tom and all that, which that's the normal. In some ways, that happens a lot with peeping Toms. They become serial rapists, and then they modify themselves into serial killers. That particular guy, had he been caught, sent to prison, and then released, like what had happened, that's what would happen back in the 70s. He would have started killing the victims. And then he would have to avoid prosecution. And then he would have become a serial killer. They're all dangerous. That's a dangerous way of fucking thinking about things. And it all has to do with fucking solipsism. So when a man or any person puts them in the center of the universe, it's like an extreme form of narcissism. The dude was a narcissist. He loved them, so therefore they didn't have a right to say no to him. And when they didn't say no to him, it made him even more valuable to him. Because they're innocent. And he cherished them more. That's a weird way. Weird.
So weird. I'm fascinated by this kind of stuff, but...
A female equivalent to that would be to have sex with a guy, and then once he fall asleep, you kill the man. That way he can't cheat on you, and he'll be loyal to you forever. That would be the female equivalent.
Right. But how often does that happen? Not very often.
It doesn't.
Just saying.
But that would be kind of like the way a female would do it.
And honestly, that would never even occur to me. Zach says, I just Googled the guy from American Nightmare, and there's a jail interview with him. He has a smile in the thumbnail, and God, it's so creepy. Yeah, that dude is, like, super creepy. And the thing about it is that he's one of those dudes that he was, reasonably good looking. He's a little weird. Like, you could tell he was a little weird, like, just by looking at him. But he was, like, successful. He was a lawyer. He had a job and shit like that. But he was doing all this shit on the down low. And they found out later, after the case that American Nightmare was about, they found out later that he was probably the same dude that was, like, creeping around, peeping in windows. And I said, that's kind of why... I'm not saying you should, like, bring the hammer down on every single person that's, like, looking in girls' windows and shit like that. But I'm just saying that that's usually indicative. That's how serial killers start. Like, sexual-type serial killers. A lot of them start as, like, peeping Tom type things. And then it escalates. And it seems like that's what this dude was doing, because he seemed to start out in this one neighborhood, like, looking in women's windows, and a lot of people complained about it, but nobody really did anything about it, because big deal. It's, like, just a dude looking in your window, like, chill out about it. But then he started breaking into people's houses and doing, like, attempted rapes. And they kind of took that seriously, but not that seriously. It was really only later. And I kind of feel like if they hadn't caught this dude, he absolutely would have become a serial killer. Because that's kind of right how it goes. They start with peeping Tom shit. And they're like, oh, we're going to break in your house. And then we'll just do rapes or sexual assault kind of thing. Or, but we'll leave the people alive. But then, like, as it goes on... then they start getting into, like, torture and murder and stuff like that. It escalates. So I'm just like, that's why you got to, like, all these peeping Tom shit, like, take that seriously. I'm not saying, like, give him the chair or anything.
The stereotypical pattern, though, is that they get arrested and go to jail first. And then they get toughened up and hardened up in prison. And then they come out, and then they start to kill. They go back to the serial rape, but then they murder, too.
Because then, like, well, we don't want any witnesses.
Right. And then they've kind of sexualized the murder part of it. That's not always the way it happens. Like, the toolbox murderers weren't like that. They just started raping.
Yeah, it's not across the board, but it is a very common pattern.
It tends to be that it escalates over time. The toolbox dudes are just fucking psycho, fucking...
I don't even... Like, dudes like that, I don't think dudes like that can be helped.
Some kind of weird mental problems.
Because I definitely do... I think most people can be
it wasn't
probably...
normal psychology.
No. I definitely do think most people can be helped, but there's some outliers like that.
Those dudes... I think those dudes were victims of damn fucking lead poisoning. That was during the time...
Yeah, I don't think there was anything you could do to rehabilitate
that was during the
those
time
dudes.
of leaded gasoline.
You just need to put them as far away from society as possible.
And if you have fucking brain damage...
Put them in a hole somewhere.
If you have brain damage from lead poisoning, your psychology is not going to be normal. It'll be real hostile. And I think that's what happened to them. That was during the time of leaded gasoline.
Yeah,
a lot of the real bad serial killers was during the time when leaded gasoline was everywhere.
And I think that was definitely a factor.
And they're breathing those lead particles. And not everybody's reacting that way to it, but some people are. You know, people that have fucking kind of bad histories and bad upbringings anyway. That lead poisoning is making them fucking getting rid of their inhibitions, making them more aggressive.
Yeah.
That's what I think part of that is.
Yeah, Tammy said, Jenny, have you ever read The Boy Called It? I've heard of it, but I haven't read it. About a child abused by his mom. That boy went through hell and never turned into a serial killer. Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I don't think abuse is ever enough. There always has to be some underlying genetic component, because sadly, a lot of children are horribly abused. And a lot of them, most of them, honestly, turn out okay. I mean, you know what I mean? At least functioning. They don't turn into serial killers. They don't. But a certain small percentage of them, if they have some kind of genetic component, yeah,
they're talking about the peeping Tom thing. Yeah, if fucking Murder Hornets talk about the peeping Tom too. Yeah, the peeping Tom thing, fucking, that's dudes that could a lot of times become rapists, because peeping Tom is, it's not consensual. It's a dude who's getting off on voyeurism.
About somebody, looking at somebody that doesn't know that they're being looked at.
So
that's what the fetish is.
It's the whole non-consensual thing is. You're stealing it. You're stealing vision. You're stealing the way it looks. Later on, you're going to steal the way it feels.
Yeah, it's
rape.
I mean, yeah, that's a pretty obvious escalation.
Yeah.
If you're willing to, it's the same kind of dudes that will like install cameras in like public bathrooms and shit like that.
And it's not like these dudes can't get laid. They get laid. Shit, even Murder Hornet can get laid. Even that motherfucker they can get laid. That's not what it is. They're fixating on the non-consensual.
Yeah, they can't get off unless it's.
Yeah, it's got to be against somebody's will.
Right. Which, like I said, I don't know
it's
if I
want surreptitious.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it a fetish, because fetish is usually between consenting people.
It's a fetish,
but it is kind of like fetishistic in that sense.
It's a fetish.
Where that's kind of the only way.
Fetish.
Right. That's the only way they can get off is by somebody like not being aware that they're being watched, or not being aware that they're obviously like being raped and stuff. Some dudes can like only get off on the woman not wanting it.
Yeah.
Which is fucked up. That's fucked up.
Well, I think it's a Madonna whore complex. If she wants it, then therefore she's a hoe. If she doesn't want it, then she's a fucking virgin.
Yeah.
And he wants the good girl. The good girl doesn't want it. Which, that's some weird...
It is very weird.
Almost religiously inspired thinking.
Well, and some of it might have come from that.
Yeah, it might be where it comes from.
Because, I mean, whether you're religious or not, all of those ideas have kind of seeped into the culture at large, unfortunately.
Yeah, a lot of prudish religions are kind of rape-prone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That does seem to go hand in hand, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
No, I know where that is.
We're not picking on Islam. Christianity was like that, too.
Yeah, I was thinking of both Christianity and Islam.
Yeah.
Because they're very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Christianity, Judaism also, but I don't
Yeah.
know what's happening there. That's a small world, and they're spread out in a diaspora. So, save for Israel, and I went to Israel, and that's just a party town. It's like California, fucking. So I don't think they're fucking prudish in Israel from what I saw.
I had never heard that particularly.
No, I don't think Judaism is a big factor of Islam. I think it is a big factor in Israel. I think it's just normal life is the factor there. It's kind of secular. That's the way it felt to me.
I kind of feel like that's what most places are like.
Yeah. Although they were upholding dietary laws, I go to a damn Pizza Hut and try to get a pepperoni cheese pizza. We don't have pepperoni. That's pork. I was like, oh yeah. And then
I'm okay
said,
with that.
Do you
I
have
don't
any
really
like
like
fucking?
pepperoni.
Do you have anything with beef? Says you can't put beef on cheese. That's cooking a fucking calf in its mother's own milk. We can't
But
do
see,
that.
that's kind of might be the same thing
So
as
what
like
can you give me
as
with
like
cheese?
some even some
Shrimp.
even some places in the United States.
Yeah.
Primarily those that were kind of settled by Catholics or something like that back in the day. It's just like, oh well, we do fish on Fridays and we do this, that, and the other thing. Which I don't. I grew up in Florida, so I don't really know about that. But I have like heard about that.
Well, growing up in Brazil, which is a Catholic country, the Catholics are not sexually aggressive or perverse to speak of outside the norms, because in Catholicism, in that system of Catholicism, it's Christianity. Some fucking Protestants don't want to accept that that's Christianity. That was the original church.
Y'all all seem like just Christians to me. Like I said, my atheist ass just sees all y'all as like different flavors of the same thing.
I like Catholics. Catholics are cool because
they got cooler cathedrals, that's for sure.
The music and
love the
fucking
stained
sounds
glass. I love that.
Another thing is,
I love the
that
aesthetic.
In the Catholic system, you can pretty much do anything as long as you
confess.
As long as you confess. And
go do some Hail Marys. That's fine.
Yeah. So
no matter what you do,
very forgiving.
Which is kind of a good system.
Yeah. Me being Southern, fuck, it's all Southern Baptist shit. It's fire and brimstone. You're going to hell. It's more like something out of ISIS.
That's no fun at all.
But fucking no, Catholicism, I liked it. I mean, fucking, you got trannies going to Catholic mass. Tranny prostitutes, fucking confessing to the sins of prostitution and fucking.
There's like, that's a bummer.
But it's okay. But then they go back out and they're gonna say, "Don't do it again." No, I'm gonna have to do it again.
Oh, I'm gonna do it again.
I'm gonna have to do it again.
I'll just have to come back next week and tell you all about doing it again. Because I got to put bread on the table. You know what I mean?
But I think it's a healthier system.
Yeah,
if you're pious like that, or you believe in a God, then it's better if you have a system of confession and going, "Yeah, I did it. I'm gonna try not to do it again."
Yeah. I mean, the fact that they acknowledge that like people are gonna do that shit. Like I said, to me. I was not raised religious, and to me, it just seems like a huge waste of time. Because I'm just kind of like, why don't you just like forego all of that and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna fuck up, and I'll atone for it later. I don't need to go to a church and say, oh, I did this and that. I'm just like, yeah, I did this. That's fucked up. I'm gonna try not to.
In Brazil, religion was an experience. You go to listen to the music and to experience a spiritual zen.
I get that from other things, though.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
I've always got that from other things.
That's their traditions.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm not shitting on it. I'm just saying that, like, I didn't grow up with that experience, so it's just kind of like I always got that feeling from other things.
But they had an alternate system too. It was kind of mixed in with it. And I used to go to this too. They had macumba, which is kind of like Santeria, but it's the Brazilian version of it. And a friend of mine took me to a couple macumba rituals, where they're kind of doing the same thing, casting out demons, trying to get good luck, getting rid of bad spirits. It was essentially kind of Catholic also.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of Catholic mixing.
Yeah, they had some Catholic saints up there on the altar, and then they had some other ones that were more kind of like the people's saints, like, you know what I mean, fucking just common Brazilian saints.
Yeah, they just kind of like co-opted it. They were like, oh, this is nice. We're just going to throw this into our shit, all right?
Right.
This is cool. We're just going to
have a ritual.
Sure.
And kind of like voodoo, but
and voodoo did that also. It's cross-contaminated with
basically
Catholicism. Yeah,
right.
It's Catholicism crossed with like African folk religions.
Exactly.
Is what that
Same
is.
thing in Brazil.
Yep.
And I saw it all as legitimate. All is equally legitimate in that system.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I see it too. Like I said,
Yeah.
and I guess it's easy for me to say because I'm not religious and I wasn't raised in any particular religious thing. So it's like whatever works for you, man.
Well, you're surrounded by people that are trying to help you. You got a priest that's trying
Whatever
to help you.
works
He's
for
blowing
you.
smoke on you. You got dancing girls there. You know what I mean? Shaking and
As long as you're not trying to like foist it on anyone
Right, yeah.
else or trying to like
Right,
just that's I don't have a problem.
You've gone there to
I
fucking
honestly
cast off some bad luck and get good luck and fucking get the spirits on your side. To pay for what you've done. That type of deal.
don't. And if people want to do that, it's like,
Yeah.
who am I to say not to?
I found it fucking fun.
Yeah.
Fascinating and fun.
Yeah.
So I understood why they did it.
Xana said Jews don't mix meat and cheese together. That's when I said I'm out.
Beef and cheese.
Yeah.
The only thing I could get on the pizza was the fucking shrimp.
He's like, no cheeseburgers? Fuck that.
No. The only thing I could get on a Pizza Hut only meat I could get on a Pizza Hut pizza was a fucking
Any
shrimp.
religion that said I can't eat a cheeseburger,
Yeah.
I'm not about that.
Yeah.
Life's too short to not
And the waitresses
eat
were
cheeseburger.
apologizing to us, all three of us. It was
Like
me
they
and
knew.
Chafino and another guy from. We were all Army guys there. We're like, what do we have? And they were, we have dietary laws here. And we're like, what does that mean? We had no idea what the fuck.
Like
we
I
thought
said,
of.
I could find other shit to eat, but
What the
still,
fuck?
it's just like, why? Why would you want to impose that on yourself?
I was in Israel, man. We were in Eilat.
I know, but
And we want a pizza with cheese and meat on it. We have shrimp. I said, okay, yeah. So we just got that.
that's good too.
Yeah.
But like I said, to me, it's just kind of like, it just seems like rules for the sake of nothing.
Yeah.
That's all. It's just like you're denying yourself joy for no reason whatsoever. That's how I kind of
They're
feel
going to
about
their
it.
books, man.
I get it, but I read lots of books too. But
Yeah.
any one of them said you can't eat a cheeseburger. Fuck that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
No
listen to that.
cheeseburger, just burger.
I'm gonna listen to that.
Yeah, burger, but not cheeseburger.
I mean,
Yeah.
burgers are good too,
Yeah.
but cheeseburger is also good.
Okay, Jen, let's go ahead and fucking kind of wind this up. How far are we going?
I'm almost like far down. So,
Okay.
like at this point, we're almost at that. So, to this day, several of his friends and colleagues, as I mentioned, do not think that Ivins was the person responsible for this. Do I believe that? I'm not entirely sure. He did have a lot of very quite severe mental illnesses, which may have, at least according to him, made him do shit that he didn't entirely remember.
Yeah.
That does happen.
Hold on, Victor says shrimp isn't kosher. I don't know if it's kosher or not, but they gave it to us at Pizza Hut. All right. They just said that they didn't have pork at all, and that they couldn't mix beef with any kind of cheese or cream. But they had shrimp. They could mix shrimp with cream. Maybe Jews didn't eat shrimp. I don't know, but they had that. That's what they.
It's
had.
just very funny to me that like something that was
Yeah.
written in a book like 2,000 years ago that's about something so trivial.
Yeah.
Like you can't put together like meat and cheese
Yeah.
or whatever. And it's just like we're still following that now. I'm like, really?
Yeah, this is back in '93.
Okay.
1993. So I was just like, well, what pizza can we have that has cheese on it and some meat? And they said, you have shrimp on it. And that's what they gave
I mean, that's good too, but
Yeah, that's what they gave us.
because shrimp isn't considered meat,
Yeah, I guess not. It's not considered meat.
even though it's
I don't understand it. Man.
obviously
I'm not
meat.
Jewish.
It's an animal.
I'm not Jewish.
But
Yeah. I'm not Jewish, and most of those Jews didn't seem to be Jewish to me either. Okay, just to say.
like I said, it just
The
seems
Hasidic
like
Jews seem
weird,
to be
arbitrary
Yeah.
shit to make your life more difficult
Yeah.
for no purpose. I don't really know why you would want to make your life more
Yeah.
difficult. Life is difficult enough without imposing all of these arbitrary rules on the shit that don't mean anything.
Well, okay, I'll just go ahead and put it out. You know, if you're in the comment section, either fucking listen to this record or whatever, if you're from Israel, maybe you can explain it. That's what they gave us to eat.
And like you said, that was a while back. So
I don't know if it's still like that now, but that was like in '93. You know, and it was in Eilat, and then we were partying at the fucking Dolphin Club where they had the dolphins. I think it's gone. That got blown up by a terrorist attack. But they had a Pizza Hut down there. Me and three other guys went to it. We were the only Americans in there at the time. Had fun there though. I liked it. I liked Israel. We used to go there for vacation when I was stationed in Egypt.
Did you find any hookers?
No, not there.
No hookers in Pizza Hut.
Hell no. Why would you need hookers in Israel, man? They had girls there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're
No, they had the hookers. The hookers were only in Korea to defend the Korean civilian women from us. They were trying to keep us fucking under wraps, man.
You gotta watch, man. Tom's dick, it'll just rove all over.
It's like the wandering womb, fucking.
It is.
What the wandering womb theory.
We talked about that. Yeah, we were talking about that last night too. I was just like, that always kind of made me laugh, like thinking about like my womb popping out,
and just going
like and walking around like with little shoes on and stuff.
Yeah.
That just makes
you
me
never
laugh.
can't tell what'll happen.
Who knows what she's doing? She's doing all kind of shit while I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
She could be fucking all kind of dudes. I don't know about it. Although if a dude wants to just fuck a random womb that's walking around all disembodied with shoes on, you gotta question that dude's motives, really. So there's a whole thing. But I don't know. I think I even made a t-shirt about that. Wandering womb. We need to go back and look into that. Xanada says, you guys still haven't done a show on the narco witch doctor / serial killer in Mexico, Adolfo Constanzo. No, we have not. Where's my pen? I was going to write that down. I think there's a pen over there. Give me a pen and a piece of paper. I thought I put one over here. I do write this stuff down. Although the show... I guess not the next show, but the show after that's going to be the Valentine's show. So maybe we should do killer couples again. Although I think we've covered most of the main ones. Let me write down... Adolfo Costanzo. Okay. I'm going to put that in the next poll. All right. So yeah, so where was I? Is there anything else that I really have to cover on this? Okay. So as far as I know at this juncture, just to wrap things up so we can talk about other things, because people clearly want to talk about other things, is that after Bruce Ivins died, committed suicide, there doesn't seem to be any weird shit about that. Like, his wife found him, he overdosed on ibuprofen or whatever. He bought like a bunch of bottles of it and just like took it. And as far as we know, after he died, the FBI closed the investigation, and then they came out a little while later and said, yeah, we're pretty sure that he acted alone, and that's the end of that. Now, most people accepted that. Some people still think that there was some either that he didn't act alone, or that maybe he was a patsy or something. Like, you know, obviously anything like this is going to bring up conspiracy theories. I don't know how I feel about that, because I do kind of feel like, as I said, his mental problems and all of the circumstantial evidence did make him seem like the prime suspect.
He's a very good suspect and the attack stopped.
It didn't happen again after. I mean, well, the thing about it is that it happened for a brief time and then stopped, and then years later they started looking into him. But see, that kind of makes me think that it was him more, because
who else could it have been?
Well, and because I don't think that his motive was terroristic in the sense that he was trying to do like something that Al Qaeda would be trying to do.
Yeah.
It was a personal motive in the sense that he was just messed up and he was just lashing out.
9/11 happened, and it was an opportunity where he could jump on that bandwagon.
And he could just like lash out at society in general, or at people who he felt had wronged him or whatever. And he maybe, allegedly, like got some jollies out of, oh, I'm going to pretend I'm an Islamic terrorist. I'm going to send like all this anthrax to, you know, NBC and Tom Brokaw and fucking the National Enquirer for some reason.
Well, it might have just been the attention.
And, you know, senators and stuff like that. So, yeah, and I think that he got off on the attention a little bit.
Yeah, well, think about it. 9/11 happened. They would talk about 9/11 constantly, and then they would mention the anthrax attacks right along with it. So every time they're mentioning those anthrax attacks, he's getting a fucking thrill about how powerful he is. That he's got the entire... that he's got the fucking... At that time, one of the most powerful fucking nation on the planet militarily, he's got them scared, trying to fucking lash out. So you feel real important when that's going on.
And I kind of feel like just from... I didn't know the dude, but the impression that I got of his personality type, he did kind of seem like the kind of person that would get off on attention like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he was a scientist, he was super smart and everything, and he could do shit that a lot of other people couldn't do. He was also, I mean, he was married and he had kids and stuff, so he had like a normal life. But on the other side of that, he also secretly had all these weird fixations on sorority girls and all this other kind of shit,
childish shit.
which I don't know if his wife knew about. I've never read anything that said that she did.
Shit for doing his 50s. Be worried
Right,
about
and yeah, and like by the time like when he died, you know, in 2008, he was 62.
Yeah.
So this is a dude that's should know better.
62, yeah.
When he died in 2008.
Yeah.
So when he was doing this stuff, he was in his 50s.
Yeah.
So someone that should not still be fixating on shit from their college years. I mean, to say the least. So just the fact that he's doing that is...
He's kind of regressive.
Yeah.
He's kind of
that doesn't mean that he was doing that. I'm just saying that it's suspicious. Because that's something that is not...
Weird.
And like I said, he does seem to fit the profile of somebody that would do something like this.
Yeah.
Is all I'm saying. I'm not saying that I think he did it. I kind of do think he did it. But...
Good chance.
And like I said, I don't think he had any political motive or anything like that. I think he just jumped on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
And was like, this is a way that I can make a splash and like draw attention to myself.
It's a good explanation because if it really was Islamic terrorists, they would have had more anthrax. They would have continued to have used it. You would have seen more and more attacks.
Because the whole point of that type of terrorism is to cause terror.
Yeah, and then to make some kind of political result or response. And the letters that were written are not coherent enough for a group that's trying to get a result. There's no reason to attack this way unless you want something. And they're not making any demands. They're not saying why they're doing it. They're not pontificating. And that's the way a real terrorist would do it.
It's
real
just
terrorist would be like, we're striking you down because of what you did over here and there.
Yeah, they're explaining.
And what we want is this and for
the whole point of terrorism,
right? Yeah,
is you're trying to get your message across,
right? And you want a result from it, and you continue to do it until you get the result. It's war. It's a warfare. It's not personal.
Yeah, this to me just seemed like a messed up.
You're right. This is personal.
He didn't seem to care that the people that he was targeting, Tom Brokaw, the National Enquirer, whatever. Like he didn't really see, or Tom Daschle or whatever. It didn't really seem to matter to him that the people he was targeting were not affected. Yeah. He just wanted attention. It seemed like, and as I said, I don't. He's dead now. And I will note that a lot of his friends and colleagues still do not believe that he ever could have done such a thing, and they know him, and I didn't. So, that has to be given some weight too, but it does seem like there was a lot about him that people didn't know, on the other hand. And he did have a lot of really quite severe mental issues, which he did seem aware of and did seem to be getting help for, although I don't think that it, in the end, helped him all that much.
If it wasn't him, who else was it? Why'd they stop?
That's what I mean, and that's the thing. Yeah, they kind of closed the investigation, but you'd think that this many years later, had someone else done it, you'd think that something would have happened and they would have found out who it was.
And they had access to high-grade anthrax. Why did that stop happening? If you have access to it, you're going to use it.
Yeah, if this was a terrorist group that had access to this high-quality anthrax, they would have kept doing it.
Yeah.
I think the fact that he... Well, and I mean, like I said, only at the beginning did they kind of think, oh, this is terrorist, that it's linked to 9/11. But very soon they began to hone in on, oh, this is a really specific strain of anthrax, so this must be somebody in the U.S. that is very, very skilled at working with this, So they honed in on the scientific community, or like people that worked with that, like pretty quickly.
That's a good call.
Right.
Because they would.
They knew what they were doing. They fucked up at first because they accused that wrong dude. But like I said, I can't even blame them. I can blame them for carrying it on so long, but I can't blame them for wanting to investigate that first dude, Hatfill. at first, because he did look kind of sus at first. I get that. But they shouldn't have carried on for like 6 or 7 years, because it was pretty clear that he didn't do the shit. So they should have like probably dropped it prior. But I can't blame them for, this was a huge deal.
Yeah.
And they wanted to get this shit solved.
If you weren't alive during the time, you wouldn't understand.
It was a huge deal.
Yeah. It was right up there with the fucking Twin Towers attack. They thought it was a part of the same attack.
At first they did, yeah. Well, because that's what you would think. It only, the letters were
around the same
postmarked
time.
like just a week later.
Yeah.
So everybody thought, oh, this is the second wave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The government jumped right on that.
They did.
Because they're like, oh yeah, now we need to fucking attack Iraq.
Well, yeah, and Bush specifically said,
yeah,
you need to make this seem like it was
they were like, this is
Islamic
all
terrorists.
It wasn't combined.
So we can use that, but it wasn't it wasn't connected. And like I said, if it was this dude that did it, I don't even think it was politically motivated in any fucking sense. It just seemed like this dude was
trying to destroy everybody. Lashing out.
Right. In the same way that a lot of kind of like, I feel like he almost had the same mentality as some mass shooters.
Yeah.
Where they're kind of like, they've had some fucked up shit happen in their lives. Some woman has fucked them over or something like that. Their wife has left them or whatever. And they can't really deal with it. So they decide they're just going to like make the whole world pay because the whole world has fucked them over apparently.
Right.
And so they decide they're just going to take everyone out. It doesn't even matter if they didn't do anything or nothing to do with them or anything like that. And I kind of feel like there's a specific type of person, usually a dude, that has that mentality that a couple bad things happen to me in my life, I'm going to make the whole world pay for it. You see this in mass shooters, you see this in mass poisoners, you see that kind of mentality. It's not common, but
women have it too. It's just
I'm just saying it's usually dudes, but
it manifests itself in a different way.
Sure.
It's going to manifest itself kind of like that chick back in the 1800s that was throwing all the babies, over the fucking into the Thames.
Who, Amelia Dyer?
Yeah.
Have we done a show about her?
Some kind of some chick who had or a damn chick working in a damn hospital as a nurse, and she's killing all the fucking patients. It's just it's the same kind of person. It's just that the gender's different in the way it manifests itself.
Yeah, it manifests because I kind of feel like, and like I said, this is a broad generalization. But generally, and this is not true of everybody, so don't at me. Dudes, when bad shit happens, tend to exteriorize.
Yeah.
Somebody else caused that.
Yeah.
Women, when bad shit happens, I caused that.
Yeah.
Generally, not everybody's like that. And that's why most of your mass shooters and people like that tend to be men, because when bad shit happens, if 2 or 3 bad things happen to a person, my wife left me, I lost my job, blah, 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 everybody owes me.
Yeah.
Like, everybody, like, you all caused this, fuck all y'all, I'm going to take everybody out. And so they tend to do that. Women tend to turn inward. I did something to cause this. I'm a terrible person. It's my fault. They'll do that kind of shit. Not everybody, but women tend to turn inward and blame themselves. Men tend to blame others.
Yeah, and when women start killing people, they start killing people, and then they try to make it so the deaths cause sympathy for them.
Yeah.
Which is like Munchausen by proxy.
Right. When women are serial killers, it's usually... Now, you get some outliers, like I said, like Aileen Wuornos or like Belle Gunness or somebody like that, who was just killing for...
Kind of like a male serial killer.
Aileen Wuornos was kind of like a male serial killer.
Yeah.
Belle Gunness, I kind of feel kind of like a male serial killer, but just a very practical serial killer. She didn't really give a shit about the people. She just wanted money. And so the people were just not people to her. They were just obstacles to her getting money. So just like, well, here's a person that has money, so bam, I'm just going to hit him in the head with a shovel and bury him and just take their checks or whatever. So she was just very pragmatic. Let's call it that. You don't see, and we've talked about this before, you don't see female serial killers that are very sexually oriented, motivated or fetishistic. You don't really see that a lot in serial. I'm not saying it doesn't happen.
They don't have the sex drive for it.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. You don't really see that.
They're going to be more like Black Widows. if it's sexual.
Right.
Which they kill
Like I
on
said,
husbands.
women kill
Yeah.
generally for pragmatic reasons.
Which is usually profit.
Yeah. Like, this is a rich dude. I married this dude, and then I'm
Yeah.
going to, like, push him off a boat or something like that because I'll get his... You know what I mean? They don't kill because it's emotional or anything like that.
It's not
They're
about
just...
vengeance so much.
No. It's usually very practical
Not
reasons.
sexual.
It's usually very practical reasons.
Yeah.
Whereas male serial killers, they tend to have a weird... a certain type of male serial killers tend to have a weird sexual fixation with it.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about with the dude, what was his name? Michael Mueller, right? Mueller?
Mueller, yeah.
Yeah. That was that dude's name that was on American Nightmare. He was kind of weird for a rapist, but he was like you said, a Don Juan style rapist, which is rarer than your kind of more power BTK style rapist.
Yeah.
But they do have some Don Juan style rapists that kind of think they're... I don't want to say they feel like they're doing the women a favor. It's not exactly like that. But
they see themselves as a nice guy who's
they
role-playing.
see themselves as a good guy.
Yeah. They're a nice guy who's role-playing, and that they're pretending to be a bad guy to alleviate the responsibility off of the woman so she doesn't have to make the decision and she can have the sex unconsensually. It's not her fault. It's his fault. And therefore she's still clean.
Yeah, that keeps her from being sullied.
Keeps her from being, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and he likes her. Now he, in his mind, he's rationalized that that he's caring for her.
Yeah.
That he cares, and he did. The dude that, when you compared to a lot of other power rapists, he did care for her. Took her home. When the cops fucking tried to put her in jail, he came to her defense. It's just that he's a rapist.
Yeah.
Okay. But he doesn't.
Yeah, don't forget that.
He doesn't make that connection though. He doesn't see himself.
He doesn't see himself like that.
All right. He's like, yeah. She went through that. She went through it like a trooper. It wasn't her fault. It was my fault. I did it, but I love her. Yeah, that's what he's doing.
Like she had
it's
to.
not her fault.
Her,
She's pristine. That's the. And he's getting off on that. I got a good girl. Yeah.
That whole fucking dynamic, man.
Yeah.
Man, that documentary fucked me up.
She was so brave. Now you know it's real.
Well, then I wonder too, because
he's doing that.
If you don't know the story, like I said, I'm not gonna like break it down, but it's not a review or anything like that. But it's just kind of like, she got kidnapped.
Yeah.
Out their house, like she was in bed with her boyfriend, whose name was Aaron.
Yeah.
She got taken out the house, put in a trunk, and taken, God knows where.
Yeah.
And she was held for she was held for 48 hours, something like that, 2 or 3 days. And then they let her go. But, she was raped a couple times in that time period.
He had an excuse and everything of why he had to have sex.
Why he had to do it. And he felt really bad. It's like, I'm in this group that kidnaps people for money, for ransom.
Yeah, and we have to do this.
And we have to have sex on video because...
To make it look like you are...
So I can use that against you later. Yes, I can use that
against you. You have to...
for leverage.
Because if you come after me, I'm going to say that we're just lovers, and you know what I mean. So we have to do this is for my security. It's just, so you got to pretend that
you're into it.
That you're into this, all right. And this is and that way you can't go to the cops. And then he goes. He does it once, and then he goes, and then he stages a fight between 3 other fictional motherfuckers
who we don't even know if they were there. They probably weren't even there.
He said it's not good enough because you're wearing.
We have to do it.
You're wearing a blindfold. So I have to tape your eyes shut so it looks like you just have your eyes closed.
That we're doing this because
he got 2 out of that.
Right.
And then he goes, "Oh, the shit fell through. I got to take you home." Yeah, and I think he told her the ransom was paid, didn't he?
I don't know if he did. And the weird thing was the ransom was only $15,000.
Yeah.
And the thing about it, I don't think because all Aaron could come up with, he said, because he did call his bank. It's like, how much can I? And they said they could only give him $3,500.
Yeah.
And he told the kidnappers that, well, I can only get $3,500, and then they stopped talking to him.
Yeah.
So for a while, they thought Aaron, the boyfriend, had staged all this.
Yeah.
And that he had killed her. But then when she turned up alive, then they thought it was her, that she was faking. And for a long time they thought that. And they just shit on both of them for setting all this shit up, and it was really horrific.
And he comes to her defense. He's sending her evidence saying, no,
And then the rapist comes forward later and was like, no, that it's
She
true.
was-
I
she
did
was-
this, and he sent pictures of where he kept
Where
her
he
and all
kept
this.
her and
It was the
what-
craziest fucking story. It was so
because
crazy.
he doesn't want her to be blamed.
But say then it's just kind of like I don't know. This kind of bothered me because there was this whole thing where, you know, Aaron and Denise, her name was, you know, they found each other and got back together like after, and they got married later and they have 2 kids now and everything like that. And she was like super worried about what he would like, that he would see her differently because of her being raped 2 times.
Yeah.
And I kind of wondered if he did. Like, he didn't seem to, but...
No, I think he felt like he had failed her. That he couldn't defend her. So...
Well, he was... I mean, to his...
Yeah.
I mean, he was
and see,
drugged. They drugged both of them.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
injected them with NyQuil or something like that.
And she was like, yeah, I just fucking wanted to get through it. Says, okay, let's get through this. Fucking, you know what I mean? I'll put
Well,
on
the
good
first
shit
one,
with
she
it.
just dissociated.
Yeah, the second
She's
one...
like, I was just outside my body.
He said it wasn't good enough. It didn't look like it was consensual. We had to do it again. And you got to look like you're into it. And she went through it.
I mean, she thought that that he was gonna kill her.
Well, she was scared to death. So
I don't blame her. I would also have been, because somebody that would do that would also absolutely kill you
so
without thinking about it.
She had no choice. Now, would that guy kill her? I don't think he would have killed her at that point in his career. He would have maybe fucking 10 years later.
As far as we know, he didn't kill anybody,
No.
but I
did
think
do a lot of
that
forcible shit,
he
though.
would have escalated to that had he still
eventually.
been running around.
Eventually.
And that's why I'm kind of glad they caught. Well, they should have caught him before he did it.
The weird thing is that, see, this is something that fucking people can't make. He saw himself as a good guy.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and that
He did.
he's a good guy with these weird fantasies that he wants, and he likes this weird, kinky situation, and he's protective of these women that he's fucking abducted.
He had
It's
a whole
weird.
thing.
It's
He
weird,
put
man.
her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He took her from her boyfriend's house.
Yeah.
They were sleeping.
He was going to take the other girlfriend.
Well, yeah, that was the whole thing.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
said, I don't know if this is true or not, but he said that he was actually targeting his old girlfriend, actually his ex-fiancée, but they had broken up not that long before.
Victor said the boyfriend was good looking too, made him gay. Vic, you were gay forever. Bro.
He was actually.
You were gay in the afterlife before you were born.
But so, I mean, and I don't know if that was true. I don't know if he actually was targeted. The old girlfriend's name was Andrea, but they had broken up at some point before, and it was apparently like a pretty acrimonious breakup. And they all worked together too, which was pretty fucked up. So I guess there had been some kind of like tension, I guess, in the relationship between Denise, the new girlfriend, and Aaron, because Aaron was still talking to the ex, like texting her and saying, oh, I still care about you and blah, blah, blah. And like Denise like found out about that and was like, bro, what the fuck is this? Like, that's your ex. Like, let's leave that all in the past. So they were kind of having a fight about that. But so apparently what happened was that somebody broke into their house, shined flashlights and like laser lights in their face, and then put like swim goggles on them that had tape over them so they couldn't see anything. And the person said his name, so they knew who these people were. They referred to them by name and mentioned something about having a wetsuit on, which I thought was weird. But he sedated both of them. Like, he had a syringe that had, I believe it ended up being, I think it was NyQuil and maybe diazepam, like, in the syringe. So he sedated both of them and tied them up and everything like that. So Aaron was tied up and, like, fell asleep. And, like, while that happened, like, they took the girlfriend, Denise, like, right out the house. Put her in the trunk of a car, took her someplace, I don't even know where it was, and held her someplace. And the dude said the whole time that she was in captivity that he was part of this group of people that kidnapped people for money. And it's like, I'm really sorry this happened. This was actually intended for his old girlfriend. They never did explain that.
He was gonna abduct that one.
Yeah,
first,
but what they found out later
he was stalking people.
Was that when they looked into like the crimes that this motherfucker had done in the past, was that it seemed like he wasn't part of a group or nothing like that. It was just that he really seemed to be into, like, he stalked his victims for a time beforehand, because I think all of the victims that had been either raped or attempted rape prior had said that he had referred to them by name.
He knew who they were.
So he had been stalking them for some time, I think, before like he broke in and did his whole weird
Started
thing.
off taking pictures of them like a peeping Tom.
Yeah, and he had been like reported as a peeping Tom.
Yeah.
Like before that time. So like I said, you got to watch his peeping
But
Tom.
the Don
It always
Juan,
escalates.
the Don Juan rapist is very delusional. They're so delusional that in one case, dude breaks into a girl's fucking house, does this thing with her, fucking, she goes along with it, and afterwards she's like, "That was amazing. Can I have your phone number?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. I'll come back and see you again."
I mean, can you imagine
gives her his phone number and his name, because of course she wants to call him back in his mind.
One, can you imagine like
she goes right to the cops.
The fucking narcissist. And as soon as she left, she was probably like, dumbass.
Yeah.
That's what I would have said.
Yeah.
But I mean, can you imagine, like, in a way, man, that chick is a hero.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have had, maybe I would have, but I don't think I would have had the presence of mind or the calmness or anything like that to act like that.
Oh no, they're having cigarettes
towards somebody that had just done that to me.
I gotta go now.
Because, like I said, I'm not good at like pretending, so I'd been
Yeah.
like, "You get the phone." Like, I probably just would have stepped on his neck or whatever. So it's just like pretending to be like, "Yeah, that was the best thing ever," and it's just
Yeah.
like that would have sounded super
They're
fake.
in
if
bed
I
having
said that.
cigarettes together. Just, I gotta go, baby. I know you go do what you.
Oh,
can
you
I
call
call
me
you?
back. Give me your phone
yeah,
number.
Of course I'll call you back. Man.
And then as soon as she left, she's like, "Stupid motherfucker." Stupid motherfucker. But yeah, she reported him right to the police. And I was like, man, that girl's my hero.
Yeah.
That girl's my
Probably
hero.
about time shut down.
Yeah, it probably is. It's 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, we mostly talked about the topic, right?
No, we covered it.
I mean, we got all
Yeah.
the way to the bottom. I always like wonder after because I'm just like, holy shit, did I
Got
get
shit
like
I
way
gotta
off?
do, man. I gotta put the food away.
Okay.
Got it under thawing.
All right. But yeah, I mean, hopefully you guys enjoyed the show this evening. I had a good time. So hopefully you guys did too. We will be back on Friday night for the Sidetrack show. Like I said, at some point, either this weekend or Tuesday, I'm going to post something new over my Scare Salon. I'm going to do the Night Gallery. It's going to be Season 2, Episode 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's what I'm working on right now. So I'm hoping to get that up sometime, either this weekend or next week sometime, because I haven't posted anything on there for a long time. But yeah, so that's the next thing I'm going to do. But we will see you guys again on Friday night for the Sidetrack show, which is always my favorite. So thanks for dropping by this evening. Hopefully we stayed on topic most of the time, enough for people not to leave. And we will see you guys again on Friday night. Good night.